Chapter 330. Originally, she thought that her understanding would backfire, because in this world, there would always be people who would believe some disguised words. Her big spade wasn't a person who could disguise, but the other party was. So, she wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Especially when it came to protecting Spade Z. She had to be calmer and win with experience. Fortunately, she wasn't fighting alone. As soon as Heartthrob came out, a lot of people reposted her, including those who really liked Spade Z and only focused on the passion that Spade Z brought them. They used it as one after another to prove their strong and powerful existence. My big spade did it on purpose. Such a domineering attack would definitely leave evidence that he and Almighty Qin are sleeping together. Huh? Attack? Are you sure? Almighty Qin won't do it. I'll just wait for Almighty Qin to wake up and check Weibo. Yes, according to Almighty Qin's character, there will be two endings. One is to block Big Spade, the other is to sleep with Big Spade. Just like that, the scene changed again. An aura full of love spread out. That person is still posting to make his presence known? Sorry, people who really like Spade Z wouldn't have any interaction with you. If you want to gain popularity, you can feel it yourself with a look. Lin Feng was still moved and frightened by Little Spade's success in sleeping with Captain. He turned his head and said to Yun Hu, "That's not right, it was Little Feng Shang who slept with Little Spade. How did he change to Captain? Do you think there was nothing between them last night?" According to Little Spade's character, he would definitely. Even if Little Spade had ulterior motives towards Captain, it wouldn't be a big deal. Obviously, there will be two situations. One is that he was beaten up by Captain and thrown out. And the other is that the person who was slept with was him, not Captain. Yin, who was indeed the best player in Supreme Alliance other than the Almighty. He hit the nail on the head with one sentence. But Little Spade is really charming. I can see that someone is protecting him. Protecting? You mean those at S from Spade fans? Lin Feng wasn't stupid. They have a good grasp of the wind direction. Otherwise someone would take the opportunity to rise. After saying this, Lin Feng became excited again. Little Spade is indeed a fresh stream in our Supreme Alliance. He dared to take a photo of Captain, and even used Captain's account to post on Weibo. Why could he use the Captain's account to post on Weibo? I'm sure Captain didn't post it himself, but how did Little Spade do it? You hacked Captain's system? I don't think so. Yin Hu tapped on the webpage on his phone. Our team's official Weibo isn't active, which means that Feng Yi knows about this. It's very likely that Little Spade got Feng Yi's approval before posting on Weibo. Otherwise, do you think Manager Feng, who values money as much as his life, wouldn't repost such an interactive photo? He's running away, and if the Captain finds out, he'll be held responsible. That makes sense. Lin Feng slapped his forehead. Ayaya, isn't Little Spade in trouble? I wonder how Captain will punish him. I really want to see. Achoo. Fujio logged out of Hero's page and logged back into the official Weibo account. Her slender fingers rubbed her nose carelessly, and her eyes paused. She was about to look at the comments that had been at S. She heard a low chuckle coming from her left side. Why are you sneezing all of a sudden? Ha. Chapter 331. As soon as Fujio turned around, she was met with a pair of deep eyes, which inexplicably gave off a hazy and inviolable feeling. Did you catch a cold yesterday? Or are you feeling unwell? The Almighty was still lying on the bed, the pillow pressed against his ear. His features were as handsome as a comic book, and a few strands of black hair fell on his forehead, the ends of the hair falling on his eyelashes. Even the smell of the hotel seemed to have sublimated on him. It was light and pleasant to the nose. But it didn't look good for the Almighty to wake up at this time. She had just replied to a post by someone called Sister Turtle, and she was going to check out other at S. Well, actually, it didn't matter what they were. What mattered was her reply. I'm so handsome, of course I'm the main. She had thought that her reply would be buried among all the comments. And the Almighty might not even see it. After all, the Almighty didn't like Weibo, and he definitely wouldn't go to her official Weibo to check the replies one by one. But Fujio's fingers paused, and she naturally moved her phone away. No, I'm fine. Oh. Chinemo looked at her movements and raised his eyebrows. He lifted the quilt with his fingers and walked over slowly. Qin Mo wasn't wearing a shirt, so his seductive waistline and well-defined chest were exposed. His mermaid lines could be seen clearly, and he looked very oppressive. Fujio thought that no matter how powerful the Almighty was, he wouldn't notice that she had just sent a reply. But Qin Mo bent over, leaned over, and pressed down on Fujio's hand. They were very close, so close that it seemed like he was going to press her down. Secretly playing with your phone while I was sleeping? That voice was really nice, but at this moment, it made her feel that every inch of his breath that hit her ear was dangerous. What did I say? Be obedient. Qin Mo freed his other hand and tapped the corner of the youngster's eye. You don't want your eyes anymore, huh? So it was about the eye inflammation. Fujio thought that the Almighty had noticed something. I want them, Brother Mo, but I have to reply to your messages, right? For example, Baby Feng sent me a message yesterday. You know that Baby Feng needs to be taken care of. Manager Feng isn't here, so I have to take care of him. If I don't reply to his WeChat for a whole night, his heart will be fragile. There was a hint of coldness in Qin Mo's eyes. You're right. Right. Fujio felt that God was kind to her. She was smart and didn't reveal any flaws when facing the pressure of a god. Fujio didn't reveal any flaws, but she gave such an explanation. Qin Mo didn't like it very much. Baby Feng, huh? This form of address was quite intimate. He seemed to be very close to Feng Shang and Shui Yaoyao. At the thought of Shui Yaoyao's existence, he frowned subconsciously. Even the Almighty himself didn't know his expression at that time. Of course I can't let you lose contact with others. Qin Mo's voice was calm as he took the phone from Fujio's hand. What do you want to reply to him? I'll help you. Fujio. No matter how smart she was, she wouldn't have expected things to turn out this way. Why did the Almighty never play by the rules? At first, Qin Mo really wanted to reply to Feng Shang, but when he took the youngster's phone, he saw an eye-catching Weibo reply on the screen. Chapter 332. That's it. That was the only thought in Fujio's mind. After Qin Mo picked up his phone, time seemed to stop between the two of them. It was empty for half a second. Qin Mo lowered his eyes and looked at the youngster on the bed. The youngster was looking at him too. That face was still clean and handsome, but no matter how he looked at it, it made people want to teach him a lesson. Attack? You? Qin Mo arched a brow. Then his thin lips curved into a smile. He remained standing by the bed, but his left hand pressed down, supporting himself on the bed. Fujio could clearly feel that the mattress had sunk a little because of the Almighty's movement. Qin Mo bent his waist and put one knee on the mattress. His legs were so long and beautiful. That handsome and noble face pressed down on her without any warning. His eyes were deep and black, like poppies in bloom, with a strong sense of abstinence. The morning sun shone on his deep and straight features, making him look even more oppressive. The two of them were so close that Fujio couldn't move at all. The Almighty was so cunning that he even cut off her escape route. This position made it seem as if her entire body was trapped under him. The light minty smoke that belonged to the man assaulted her from all directions. He just looked at her. That pair of eyes that had always been indifferent seemed to be about to attack at this moment, emitting a dangerous and beautiful luster of a predator. Since you insist on being the attack, I'll have to practice with you. Let's see who's more aggressive, you or me. As Qin Mo said this, he was about to teach this troublemaker brother a lesson. His first reaction was to strip the youngster. Qin Mo's action completely alerted Fujio. Brother Mo, I have something to say about this. Fujio took a step back, but Qin Mo held her wrist. The Almighty didn't care. Oh, you still have something to say? When we play werewolf, everyone who is thrown out has to say something before they die. Fujio looked serious. Qin Mo was interested. He wanted to hear what this naughty kid had to say. He was still talking about werewolf, so he raised his eyebrows at the youngster, signaling him to continue. Anyone who plays hero knows that offense is the best defense. Fujio leaned forward, sat up straight, and kissed him on his right cheek without any warning. Her bright eyes, coupled with her silver hair, looked handsome and devilish. I want to say, Brother Mo, it's so early in the morning. Why would I think that you're interested in me when you're pounding me on the bed like that? Am I supposed to think that you're interested in me too? I can't help but kiss you. Indeed, Chinemo didn't expect Fujio to make such a move. His fingers paused, and his mood sank. His eyes darkened like the water in a deep well. Fujio seized the opportunity to escape from the predicament. She stood with one hand in her pocket and sighed regretfully. Brother Mo, what do you think we should do? Just when I thought I was a little straighter, you turned me gay again. This is not good, not good. At this moment, Chinemo was so angry that he laughed. His lips curled up faintly. He straightened his body and stepped on the floor barefooted, like a god descending from the heavens. Afterward. Chapter 333. The distance between them was even closer, because both of them were standing. Moreover, Chinemo grabbed Fujio's collar and dragged her over. Following that strength and posture, Chinemo lowered his head and leaned forward, his thin lips inching closer to Fujio. The perfect height difference was just like what the Tokyo girls said. If the two of them kissed, the scene would be very beautiful. But Chinemo was still rational. How could he kiss her? He was just warning his disobedient younger brother. You're so good at talking nonsense. Tell me, how should I teach you a lesson, huh? Brother Mo, do you want to hear the truth? You're the big brother, so you have to let me win. Fujio decided to change tactics. She didn't even try to dodge, and there was a slight smile on her lips. Chinemo listened to the youngster's rascally tone and laughed instead of getting angry. You like meat? You like to play with your phone? You like to post on Weibo? The last one average. Fujio didn't have a habit of posting on Weibo, but what she said was true. Chinemo was still holding on to her phone. He moved his fingers, letting her see for herself. Do you like to take photos? Brother Emo looks so handsome when he's sleeping. Of course I have to record such beautiful things. Fujio smiled casually. This is the first time I'm competing with so many people. And then I'm staying in a hotel room with my good friends. It's not bad to wake up like this in the morning. It'll be a memory in the future. When Chinemo heard the youngster's words, he loosened his long fingers and tugged at the youngster. The two of them leaned back and lay down on the bed. Fujio did not expect the Almighty to make such a move. The Almighty's reaction was always different from what she expected. Therefore, he was caught off guard for a moment. When his whole body was lying on the soft mattress, she saw the Almighty raise his left hand, which was holding the phone, and his right hand pressed her head against his shoulder. Then there was a cracking sound. Her face and the Almighty's shoulder appeared on the screen. Fujio paused and tilted her head to look at the man beside her. He had never been so close to anyone before, but he was really happy. Since it's a memory, it's more meaningful to take a photo together. Chinmo's voice was very calm, but his attitude was like he would try his best to satisfy his younger brother no matter what he wanted. In addition, he had always been very resistant to taking photos. At this moment, he actually felt that the feeling of taking a photo with another person wasn't so bad after all. It should be said that it was not bad. Chinmo's thin lips curled up, and his side profile was so handsome that even Fujio wanted to whistle. The Almighty was so handsome that he didn't leave anyone a way out. This expression doesn't look good. Fujio took the phone over to delete it. Chinemo reached out to stop the youngster. Your embarrassed expression is enough to make me laugh for a year. Keep it. Fujio. Why was she so touched just now? The Almighty's purpose for memory was to watch her make a fool of herself? Then I'll take another one. She was so handsome, she couldn't lose to the Almighty. This time Chinemo let Fujio be. The two of them were still in the same position, lying on the bed. The difference was that this time, Fujio included the Almighty. The first time the two of them took a photo together was in bed. Only Fujio and Chinemo. One was rebellious, while the other was domineering and indifferent, thought nothing of it. Ordinary people would definitely think a lot when they saw that picture. Chapter 334. So handsome. Fujio looked at the photo and whistled, with a devilish smile on her face. Just as she finished praising her handsomeness, the Almighty took away her phone and said in a deep voice, "Go drink your medicine." My phone. Confiscated. Chinemo stood up and walked back to his bed, probably to find something to wear. Fujio's mood now was only comforting herself with good food. She also stood up and took her wallet. Brother Mo, what do you want to eat? I'll go get it. Most hotels provided free breakfast, and it was a buffet. Especially in a star-rated hotel like this, the breakfast was even better. But there was still a charge to bring the food to the room. Chin Mo buttoned up the last button on his shirt and immediately said in a businesslike manner, "Let's go together after I wash up." Okay. Fujio smiled, looking exceptionally handsome. Boys were different from girls. He said he was going to wash his face and rinse his mouth. Girls washing up included eyeliner, eyebrows, BB cream, and other follow-up procedures. So it was definitely different in terms of time. In less than 3 minutes, the two of them walked out of the room and went down the elevator side by side. The hotel's restaurant was located in the lobby on the 2nd floor. Dark carpets covered the floor, and gorgeous chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Below the lights was an oval marble table, on which many colorful dishes were placed. There were Western food, Chinese food, and Japanese food. There were also fruits cut into flower shapes, which stretched down like a long dragon. In addition to these, there were also busy waiters. Because they were in Tokyo, they were also dressed as deacons. Some of them were pouring milk for the guests. They were wearing black suits and pure white gloves, which added a sense of gentleness to them. Hotel guests could choose food from here with the dining tickets in their room cards. Here, the food must be fresh. If no one came to pick it up after 10 minutes, the waiters would bring a new batch of food. Fujio and Chin Mo chose a distance from the floor-to-ceiling window. From this angle, they could see the most prosperous Tokyo streets outside the hotel. Their appearances naturally attracted many people's attention. In the past, Fujio only felt that she was handsome, so she didn't feel much about it. But now that she was with this god, it was indeed. It was mainly because the Almighty looked like a noble young master who was here for morning tea. His every move exuded nobility. Compared to the Almighty, she ate a lot. She didn't know how the Almighty's stomach worked. He only ate so little. Chin Mo also wanted to ask Fujio this question. He glanced at the 3 empty plates in the youngster's hands and finally convinced himself that he was still growing in puberty. Otherwise, I really don't know where this guy puts his food. I'm not satisfied yet. Go get another plate of fried rice. Fujio stuffed one hand into her pocket. She didn't feel like she ate much at all. Brother Mo, what else do you want? I'll bring it over. Chin Mo thought about it and felt that the way some parents did things was good. They let their children do more things for them. This would give them a sense of achievement, right? Black tea. Okay. Chin Mo looked at the youngster's tall and straight back, then casually looked at his phone screen. Spadesy's Weibo account hadn't been logged out, so it was obvious that he was tagging and commenting. It was quite interesting to watch. Chapter 335. That was a message that had been replied to many times. That was why he could see it so easily. Look here, don't put our almighty Chin and Spadesy together, understand? There were actually 2 types of messages like this. First, someone didn't like being tied up. Second, they wanted to attract attention. Obviously, this person was the second type. Otherwise, he wouldn't have kept replying. I was a bit impulsive just now, but let me say this first, I like Big Spade too. Whether he likes Spadesy or not was another matter. After Chin Mo clicked on that person's message, he only had one feeling. This person was imitating Spadesy in everything, and wanted to become an internet celebrity. Chin Mo was a businessman. As a businessman, it was easy to see the essence through appearances. It wasn't impossible that Spadesy could attract attention, and wanted to spend money on him. Of course, Chin Mo didn't rule out the possibility that this person might have really liked Spadesy from the start. But this liking wasn't pure. First, he pretended to be a fan, then he imitated Spadesy, and finally, he posted such a message to attract attention. Anyone with a brain could see what he was thinking. This reply must have been avoided by the true Spade fans through the manipulation of public opinion. But some people couldn't see through it, and kept interacting with that person. Almighty, I know you are a Spadesy fan too. That's why you said such words. It's to make my Big Spade better. It's okay, good luck. That person replied, I love Big Spade the most hug. Then a few people started replying happily. I want to touch him. I caught Almighty. I realized he is similar to my big spade. He speaks so righteously, I'm a fan too. The topic that had already died down was stirred up again. Those who claimed to be Spade Z's fans didn't realize they had become accomplices to hurt Spade Z. They said they liked him, but they were helping a person who was trying to imitate Spade Z to become famous. In fact, Chin Mo didn't care what this person was planning, but he didn't want his brother to see such a disgusting thing. If it wasn't good enough to guide the public opinion, he would add more. This time, Chin Mo didn't post on Weibo directly. Instead, after 2 glances at the reposts, he accurately locked onto a person called Sister Turtle. Then he clicked on her nickname and sent a private message. I'll post something about someone on Weibo later. Is there a problem with it? Sister Turtle had imagined many times how their big spade would send her a private message on Weibo. But she didn't expect Almighty Chin to send her a private message first. Even Sister Turtle, an experienced and knowledgeable white-collar worker, almost choked on her water. However, they were all people in the workplace, so their words were straightforward. No problem. Sister Turtle didn't ask why Almighty Chin came to talk to her. Smart people would understand once they saw the things on Weibo. Just now, she was still worried that the scheming person would appear again. After all, no matter how good you were to yourself, you couldn't control the thoughts of others. Somehow he could empathize with them. Her heart ached for Big Spade, the youth who said, "Justice may be late, but it is never absent." She was being hurt, but some people who said they liked her became her accomplices. This matter must be stopped. Sister Turtle heaved a sigh of relief at the Almighty's timely appearance. Chapter 336. Sister Turtle was not a fan of the CP. She also knew that there should be a deep brotherhood between esports players. Since the last incident, it could be seen that Almighty Chin was really good to their big spade. But someone called their big spade. Wasn't that too? Sister Turtle shook her head. As a professional woman, she didn't want to be like those cute high school students. She just needed to protect Big Spade. Sister Turtle thought about it, and waited for the Weibo post about someone mentioned by Almighty Chin to be sent again. At this time, in a star hotel in Tokyo, Chin Mo's fingers moved, logged into his official Weibo, and posted the edited photo of the youngster. He edited a few words in a very simple tone. Both offensive and defensive are shown immediately. Sister Turtle's computer page stayed on Chin Mo's Weibo. When she saw the photo, she was completely stunned. In the photo, the silver-haired youngster looked at the camera with a smile. Even the curve of the corner of his mouth seemed to be smart and handsome. He squinted his left eye, looking very flirtatious. The black ear stud was very eye-catching. And Almighty Chin cooperated with the youngster, tilting his head down in a very domineering manner. His dark eyes seemed to be overflowing with light, and he even showed his collarbone. He was really aggressive. The two people's temperaments were completely different. In the photo, not only did it not erase their original advantages, but it also highlighted each other's nobility. They were so handsome that people just wanted to scream. But the photo also had special effects. The pair of hairy black devil ears on the top of the head was really beautiful. And they were using pillow, right? What was going on? Sister Turtle's hand holding the mouse was a little confused. Again, she really was not a fan of the CP. But if it kept going like this, she couldn't stop thinking about it. Such a photo with Almighty Chin's words was very meaningful. What was Almighty Chin doing? Even if he was giving out candy, it was not like this. His official Weibo would be blown up. It would indeed be blown up. Over there, the person who wanted to use the topic of Spadesy to become popular was still interacting with the 2 or 3 people who claimed to be Spadesy's fans, wanting others to recognize her. On this side, there was already a huge uproar. He was so handsome that the whole screen was flooded. F***CK, F***CK, is there something wrong with my eyes? Group photo? A photo of us lying on the bed? Oh, so handsome. 2 demons, so handsome, so handsome. What should I do? Previous poster, you have no hope. Didn't you see the caption that the Almighty posted? The Almighty is on the left, and Spade is on the right. I don't want to say anything else. I just want to ask the Almighty, how long will you keep giving out sweets? I'm afraid my HP will be empty and I'll have a nosebleed. My heart is beating so fast after seeing this photo. Almighty, look at the way you're looking at Big Spade. It's so obvious. A long time ago, I had a crush on an esports guru. His Weibo was always posted every year. Moreover, it was a game guide. But now he had changed. I don't want to tell you the reason, but as a single dog, I automatically accept this bowl of dog food. I really want to run 2 laps downstairs. My most beloved male god and my second most beloved male god are finally in the same frame. This situation. I actually feel so blessed. I want to be a CP fan. Chapter 337. After Qin Mo's fan mentioned it. Only then did the others realize that, indeed, the Almighty's Weibo was filled with Big Spade's Weibo, apart from the games that he had posted before. That's right, everything was about Big Spade. And if this had happened in the past, posting photos? Hee, the Almighty even wanted to wear a black mask to cover his handsome face when he was playing. The media didn't dare to take pictures of him. But look at this. Why did the Almighty post photos? And he blocked all other voices with these 3 words in such a domineering manner. What was he trying to say? Everyone knew what he was trying to say. The Almighty didn't just say it when he said he would protect Big Spade last time. Thinking back to the reply someone had sent here, most of them understood what was going on. The Almighty is here to get revenge for Big Spade. I like this way of getting revenge. I hope the Almighty will come here more often in the future. Almighty Qin and my Big Spade are in the same frame, Seeing this, Sister Turtle reposted Qin Mo's Weibo without hesitation and tagged Fujio. Attack, receive, immediately show poor my Big Spade. You are so handsome, but you still can't attack Almighty Qin. Spade's true fan saw Sister Turtle move, and he immediately followed. Attack, receive, immediately show touch my Big Spade. Fight again next time? This basically depends on temperament. I firmly believe that my Big Spade is the attack, second only to 1 and above millions. Don't mess around, Almighty Qin just happens to be that one person. Qin Mo's fingers slid through the Weibo page, and he looked at those Spade's true fans tagging him, and the corner of his mouth curved up. That sentence, second only to 1 and above millions, Almighty Qin just happens to be that one person. It was inexplicably pleasing to the eye. Involuntarily his fingertips moved and he liked it. That Spade's fan, who never thought that she would be flipped, was stunned. Almighty Qin was really closer than she thought. Wow. The Almighty gave me a like. The Almighty is saying that Big Spade is the attack. The Almighty is so black-bellied. I just want to know what my Big Spade can say. In the morning, you said I was so handsome, so I must be the attacker. Now I'm being attacked. Fujio had no idea what was going on the official Weibo account. She had a piece of hot toast in her mouth, one hand in her pocket, and the other hand was holding a tray. The food on the tray was especially sumptuous. You only eat fried rice? Qin Mo looked up from the phone screen and glanced at the youngster in front of him. The corners of Fujio's mouth curled up. Her smile was as bright as the sun, and it was hard to fade. I always feel hungry. It must be because of the lack of meat. It's also possible that I'm growing. Qin Mo's fingers were still moving. Remembering that the youngster was still in puberty, he frowned. Have you felt any knee pain recently? Fujio shook her head. No. Her chest would occasionally swell up, but it was true. How could she still be growing at this age? It was a little disadvantageous for her. Buy some vitamins after dinner. It's for prevention. Qin Mo was thinking about the situation he would face when he was growing up, but he didn't expect the youngster in front of him to be in a different situation. Chapter 338. Qin Mo lifted his lids and leaned back, sitting elegantly on the chair. You want to know? Let's see. As he said this, he pushed the phone in front of the youngster with a faint smile on his face. Fujio raised her eyebrows and looked at the screen that hadn't dimmed yet. There was a photo with 4 words. Attack, receive, immediate, present. And all the comments, all of which were pitying her. The receive? Receive. Didn't the little cuties see her fierce and aggressive eyes? The Almighty was indeed aggressive, but she wasn't bad either. Fujio's fingers paused. No wonder the Almighty, who didn't let her take the phone, pushed it away from her. It was all a trick. Fujio couldn't enjoy the handsome photo of herself and the Almighty anymore. What attack and receive? Chinemo looked at the depressed face of the youngster with the toast in his mouth and smiled happily. Don't talk. Fujio pointed at him. Chinemo was a big brother, so he wouldn't listen to his little brother. Your fans have good taste, especially when it comes to our positions. Brother Emo, you are exposed, I am exposed, so I am also on the offensive. Fujio took the tray as she spoke, using food to make up for this defeat. That photo on Weibo had already blown Lin Feng up. He asked Yunhu along the way. Did Captain really sleep with Little Spade? What method did Little Spade use to get Captain to take a photo with him? And Captain even learned to say attack and receive. Shouldn't our team be full of straight men? Even if others are gay, Captain should be the representative of millions of straight men. You mean can you be gay? Yunhu showed his room card and walked into the magnificent hall. Lin Feng shook his head immediately. No. Then shut up and take the food. Yunhu took a tray. Lin Feng fixed his eyes on it and strode towards Fujio's table. He was first shocked by the number of empty plates on the table, and then he said to Chinemo seriously, Captain, I came to find Little Spade to eat together. Little Spade, let's see what else you want to eat. If he wanted to ask questions, he had to drag him away alone. Fujio wouldn't refuse good food, so she smiled and was about to get up. Chinmo's voice was calm. He has already eaten 7 plates, 1 toast and 3 glasses of juice. Are you sure you want him to continue eating? These words were directed at Lin Feng. When those deep eyes looked at him again, there was a hint of pressure. Lin Feng immediately loosened his grip. Chinemo raised the porcelain cup and took a sip of iced Americano. The chill immediately dissipated quite a bit. Since he couldn't pull them apart, Lin Feng could only beat around the bush. After all, the 2 main characters in the photo were there. Little Spade, how did you sleep last night? Where's classmate Feng? Why don't I see him? That's right, don't know that Captain and the others are already in the same room. However, Fujio replied to this question very meaningfully. She said in an evil tone, take a guess. Guess your sister. Was Little Spade his biological brother? If you're my brother, then tell me the truth. Lin Feng turned his face and kept communicating with Fujio with his eyes. Fujio held a piece of chewing gum in her mouth, and a bubble came out as she chewed. She looked so handsome, but she was asking for a beating. However, the captain didn't care about this guy. Chapter 339. Attack. Chinemo raised his eyebrows and laughed. He said coldly, it's the same whether you wear clothes or not. That face is too beautiful, so it'll be even worse if you take it off. Don't even think about it. Lin Feng. 10,000 points of critical hit. Fujio couldn't help but laugh. Lin Feng felt that it wasn't suitable for him to stay here in this situation. Yunhu stood behind him, dragging 2 plates. The whole team has pictures of you with your shirt off. How can you say that you are the attack? Fujio was interested. Where? Let me see. Lin Feng pulled Yunhu over and said seriously, Little Spade, I have something to discuss with your brother Yunhu. You and Captain can continue eating. How could he pull Yunhu with his strength? Yunhu could knock him down with one hand. But Yunhu liked to tease him, so he let Lin Feng pull him away. Fujio saw that there was meat on the tray, and her eyes lit up. Unfortunately, the Almighty moved faster than her. He moved his fork and said calmly, let me help you destroy such a sinful thing. You want to see pictures of people with their shirts off? My brother's interests are really different. Actually, I only want to see Brother Mo's. Fujio smiled and blinked her left eye. So Brother Emo, you can give me your phone and let me see it again. Chinemo was not moved at all. Your eyes are red, and you still want to take your phone? If you want to see it so much, I'll take it off in my room. Fujio paused slowly. The Almighty was so cunning and not easy to deal with. And she didn't know if it was because she always flirted with him, but he was getting better at avoiding flirting. Fujio was still a little depressed. Yunhu and Lin Feng came with other team members. Because today was the last day of training, everyone was wearing a very handsome combat uniform. This attracted a lot of attention from the diners. They could vaguely hear people talking in Japanese. Are they esports players? It seems so. Every one of them looks very imposing. Unfortunately, they are not from Tokyo. There is a handsome young man over there, like a character from a manga. Esports was very popular in Tokyo. Even Lin Feng, a big man, felt that he was being watched. However, today, Secretary Liang really wasn't in the mood to replace Manager Feng and lead the Supreme Alliance to the training. He was standing at the entrance of the hotel restaurant. His expression was so conflicted that he didn't look like the capable and handsome CEO's assistant that he usually was. Who could tell him what the situation was? There's President Qin, who was so cold that he could freeze people to death, and no one in Jiang City dared to take a picture of him, was now on the hot search list. There were still 2 people in the photo, and both of them were extremely handsome. But Secretary Liang really couldn't appreciate that handsomeness. First, he made an international call to someone he knew, and with great difficulty he suppressed the popularity on Weibo. In the end, Madam had called him. To call him at this time, it would be strange if Manager Feng did not feel conflicted. The waiter at the side couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward politely and asked, "Sir, is there anything we can help you with?" At first, the waiter spoke in Dongjing dialect. Seeing that Secretary Liang was still frowning, he repeated it in English. Only then did Secretary Liang realize that there were still people around. He immediately smiled warmly. "Thank you, but no, it's a phone call." As he spoke, Secretary Liang took a step and walked towards a quiet place. Chapter 340. Hello, Madam. Secretary Liang had mixed feelings when he said the first sentence. If Madam asked him about the photo, how would he answer? Could it be that he felt something was wrong with CEO Qin recently? Or maybe it was nothing. It was just that the people in the same team had a good relationship. What the F***CK CEO Qin had been alone since he was a kid. Except for those in the compound, who else had he been close to? When he was in high school, he had a group of people following him. At that time, CEO Qin didn't look like a third-generation soldier. He looked like the boss of the school. Now that he was in college, he looked like a CEO. There were many people who admired CEO Qin, but the one who was especially close to him was Fujio. However, he could not rule out the possibility that it was a bond between brothers. He had to be honest. Secretary Liang calmed himself down and asked in a professional tone, "Madam, what can I do for you?" The beauty on the other side of the phone was a little depressed. "Liang, I am here. My son found you." Secretary Liang wanted to say that CEO Qin found me long ago, but Madam only found out now. His eyes were full of tears. "Why didn't you tell me that Emo was talking to a boy? You made me so excited." Secretary Liang's heart skipped a beat. "You knew?" "Yes, I knew. The beauty side. I told you, it's impossible for him to change. Help me keep an eye on him. See if there are any other girls in front of him. If there aren't any, create an opportunity for him to meet them." Secretary Liang wanted to say that he had changed, but no, as the CEO's assistant he couldn't just guess. "Yes, Madam. I have arranged it, but CEO Qin is not happy. For example, during this special training in Tokyo, he felt like he was about to be abandoned. Because of the Cali team, CEO Qin looked at him with coldness. Secretary Liang knew that was a warning. You can't go too far. The beauty thought about it and said, "Then you can pay attention to who he is close to. Guys are fine too, but don't let him be too cold." Secretary Liang opened his mouth. "Guys are fine too? Brothers, of course. Mo can't sleep alone, so I heard that he found a good friend to keep him company." After saying that, the beauty bit her teeth. It doesn't seem like something he would do. It's weird. Secretary Liang. So the president really slept with young Master Jiu last night. Those photos weren't taken randomly, right? Why did he feel even more exhausted? All right, I'm going to join the crew. Let's keep up the catchphrase. Secretary Liang listened to the sound of the phone being hung up. What the hell was the slogan? Madam asked him to do this, and he couldn't refuse. "It's not that I can't refuse, Madam. But he couldn't refuse his boss. When Secretary Liang received this order, he would first report it to his boss. The boss smiled faintly and said, "That's good. You can train your undercover skills. By the way, your CEO Qin's anti-reconnaissance skills are very good. But you have to understand a mother's concern for her son. Go. In other words, my son will definitely find you, so you have to go too." Secretary Liang took a deep breath. He couldn't bear to look back on the past. He had to think carefully about how he was going to work from now on. First of all, Chapter 341. Because of the photo, the atmosphere among the Supreme Alliance members was a bit strange. Especially Feng Shang. His eyes were full of grievance. He wanted to sue the captain, but didn't want to see the lawsuit. Who hasn't seen the fighting video of Sakura Stream Squad? Qin Mo was the one who broke the atmosphere. Counting on Fujio? The young man only knew how to smile evilly, which made people think of elegance. Although Wuxia was no longer in this circle, he was a professional, so he would pay attention to this aspect. The ones who hadn't seen it were Shui Yaoyao, Feng Shang and Fujio. Everyone watch it again. Lin Feng is responsible for explaining. Qin Mo said and stood up. Let's go to the hotel conference hall. Such a hotel usually had a conference hall, but it was expensive. But since Secretary Liang was here, this kind of thing would definitely be arranged properly. All the members sat on both sides of the conference room, which was a very cool scene that could only be seen in movies. Yun Hu skillfully turned on the computer, then plugged in the USB drive, and the picture was projected on the big screen in the conference room. The captain of Sakura Stream Squad, Yamaguchi. He used to fight with the captain, and he is best at close combat. According to the style of Sakura Stream Squad, he must be training urgently now. There are two other members. I am familiar with Lin Feng. This ranking match is 5v5, and Lin Feng and I will deal with these two. The most worth mentioning is him, Shuji. Everyone looked at the photo, and their eyes became sharp. It's him. Yes, it's the person we met in the training base yesterday. Yun Hu's expression didn't change at all. He just joined Sakura Stream Squad this year, but he has already become an official member. The reason why Sakura Stream Squad is so murderous this time is because of him. This person is best at sneak attacks, and his character is full of hostility when he operates it. He is famous for being bloodthirsty, so in this team competition, we need to be wary of him jumping out of the grass and suddenly attacking us. Someone couldn't help saying, his hand speed shouldn't be as fast as Little Spade. The hero is not just about hand speed. Little Spade can indeed avoid his sneak attacks, but our speed is not as fast as him. This is 5v5 ranking. Yun Hu put down the pen and reminded everyone of the most critical point. Here is the video of Shuji's sneak attack. Everyone watch it. Time is tight, and this is all we can collect. With that, Yun Hu tapped open the video. The members of the Supreme Alliance watched helplessly as the two people who were attacking on the main road were suddenly frozen in place by a red shadow that jumped up from behind. Then, the red shadow moved back and forth 3 times, completing a double kill in an instant. Surprisingly, he was unscathed. Such a person would be very troublesome to deal with, whether it was attacking or defending a city. The Supreme Alliance members all looked at each other. They saw the same thing in each other's eyes. The conference room suddenly fell silent. There was only one thought in everyone's mind, and that was how they would deal with this person if they encountered him. Everyone knew that the friendly match the next day would be no less difficult than the national competition. Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang were even more shocked. As two pure newbies, they finally felt what real esports was. Joining the Supreme Alliance was just the beginning. Chapter 342. It didn't matter. They would definitely win. They still had Spadesy. Thinking of this, Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang looked at Fujio together. Fujio didn't laugh this time. She just looked at the video, thinking about something. At this time, Shui Yaoyao and Feng Shang didn't know that in order to protect Fujio's eyes, Qin Mo didn't plan to let Fujio play. After watching the video of Sakura Stream's game, the atmosphere of the whole team changed. It was a kind of change in the eyes, which could make people immerse in it unconsciously. When everyone started training, it was already too late. Fujio's hands were a little itchy. In the beginning, she just sat there with a lollipop in her mouth. Later, her eyes began to involuntarily fall on the bright screen. Chinemo sat far away from Fujio, put out the cigarette between his fingers, stood up, and walked to the youngster. Look up. Apply the medicine. Chinemo was indeed a good brother, even carrying eye drops with him. When Fujio applied the medicine, she couldn't help but tilt her head to look at the screen. Chinmo's fingers were still lifting the youngster's chin. Seeing him tilt his head, he didn't say anything. But Fujio opened her mouth. She blinked her stung eye, and became blind in one eye. I'd better play tomorrow. I'm afraid I can't stop that Shuji without me. His hand speed was really fast. Not just fast, but most importantly, you didn't know when he would come out. In the game, hiding in the grass could make you invisible. To deal with him, in addition to fast reaction and accurate positioning, the most important thing was to understand the way of sneak attack. Fujio was a hacker. Compared with Shuji, she was better at camouflage attacks, so she could deal with what she was good at. Chinmo's voice was very calm. I'm here, don't worry. Fujio wanted to say something. Chinemo raised his eyebrows. What? You don't believe me? Hearing that, Fujio laughed. I believe you. Then I'll cheer for you in the waiting area. When did it start? The two of them gradually became this close. In the beginning, they got along with each other with a smell of gunpowder. But now they both knew what each other was like. The trust of the strong didn't need to be said much. But Fujio still felt a little regret. I thought I could fight with you, Brother Emo. What a pity. When he said this, the young man was smiling. Chinemo kept the eye drops and stuffed them into his trouser pocket. His other hand ruffled Fujio's silver hair. Don't say oh. It'll be more believable. This guy's words were so annoying. How did he manage to endure it? Was it because he was good-looking? Fujio was indeed good-looking. She lifted her hand and placed it on Chinmo's shoulder. Brother Emo, look at my serious eyes. I only saw the redness. Chinemo frowned. It's not good to stay indoors all the time. I'll bring you out for a walk. Our goal is the National League. If your eyes are still like this, they will be affected. Fujio really couldn't stay here. It hurt her eyes to look at the computer screen all the time. After hearing Chinmo's words, Fujio understood the gravity of the situation. She put on a plush black coat and followed Chinmo out. This time, Secretary Liang didn't dare to follow anymore. The outdoor air in Tokyo was very fresh. In addition, because it was too cold, snow had already started to fall. Everything looked very beautiful. Chapter 343. But in the next second, Fujio, who was about to walk forward, paused. The afternoon light shone on her body warmly. People were walking to and fro on the business street, and some were looking up. Some were exclaiming, some were laughing, and some were talking. Gosh, that must be our number one. The number one team in the whole server, my favorite Hoshino, he's so handsome. I even went to buy Hoshino's merchandise yesterday. I love him so much that I couldn't get a lot of things. Did you see that smile just now? My heart was trembling. That person was asking the girl standing next to Fujio. Then he turned around and saw a silver-haired handsome young man who was no less handsome than Hoshino. He was stunned. Fujio's eyes fell on the large LED screen on the business street. She was very familiar with that person. So familiar that she stopped abruptly. Of course, Chinmo noticed that the young man didn't keep up. He turned around and saw that the young man was lifting his chin with his left hand in his pocket. His eyes were full of tenderness as he watched the scene on the screen. Tenderness? Not completely. There were too many other emotions. What kind of person could make someone stare at him like that? Chinmo also saw that scene. Hoshino, an esports player who had emerged in the past 2 years, was extremely popular in Tokyo. The reason why he was liked by so many people was not only because of his achievements, but also because of his face, which was comparable to that of a movie star. Do you know him? This was Chinmo's first question. Fujio turned her head, and her silver hair fell down. How could that be? I just think he's handsome. Really? Chin-mo didn't continue this topic. Fujio laughed. Actually, I know him, but he doesn't know me. I've watched his games and the scene is good. Chin-mo looked at the young man again, and his voice was very calm. Got it. The Almighty said that he got it, but it seemed that he didn't believe her words. Fujio also knew that her behavior was a bit obvious. It was only when Hoshino appeared that she stopped. But she didn't plan to do anything. In life, one had to look forward. Hoshino should be living a happy life now. That was enough to know. She didn't touch any of her bank accounts and bank cards, because she wanted to cover up her identity. Once the matter here was settled, he would go and deal with the others. However, Fujio didn't know that in the eyes of others, she had a different expression. Chin-mo looked at the youngster without any expression on his face. His fingers paused for a moment, and his long and narrow eyes seemed to have lost some of the warmth they should have. In the end, because they had walked too far, they had to take a bus back. Because of the roads, there was only public transportation. The Tokyo tram was heated and very clean. But as long as it was public transportation, there would be a lot of people. The scenery outside the car window kept changing. Fujio felt a little squeezed. Chin-mo was even more unsuited for such an environment. Fujio wondered if this was the Almighty's first time taking public transportation. She had been staring at that handsome and noble side profile for too long. An uncle came up and was about to bump into Fujio. Chapter 344. Fujio pressed her head against it. It smelled a lot better in an instant. Although the trams in Tokyo were clean, but there were many people, so it still smelled good. Now it was gone. Fujio touched her nose and lifted her head. She found out that she and the Almighty were in such a position that she wanted to kiss him. Seriously, don't blame her for thinking too much. She had been teased by the Almighty recently. If Chin-mo knew what the young man was thinking, he would have laughed coldly. Who was teasing whom? There were people behind and people in front. Chin-mo was like a dead end. Fujio didn't move back. She pressed her head against Chin-mo's. Finally, she found it interesting, so she used her fluffy head to push against him. In such an environment, the Almighty couldn't do anything to her. Chin-mo really couldn't do anything to the young man. He held the young man's back with one hand and grabbed the bracelet on the tram with the other. His face was extremely handsome. Who knew that the guy in his arms would be so naughty? After Fujio bumped into him, she clearly heard the Almighty's sigh. She was amused and continued to push. Chin-mo lowered his eyes and looked at the head that was still trying hard in his arms. The little silver swirl on the top of her head made her look especially cute. He resisted the urge to throw the young man out of the tram like trash. He lowered his voice and said in a tone that sounded like an older brother educating his younger brother. You've had enough, haven't you? Fujio smiled. She pressed against him and stopped. After being teased by the young man, Chin-mo's inexplicable discomfort dissipated a lot. Even the corners of his mouth lifted a little. He was a little crazy, because the tram was too crowded. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with their current posture. It was just that Fujio's head was slightly below Chin-mo's shoulder. The silver-haired young man lowered his eyes, and the man looked like he was abstinent and domineering. Someone wanted to take a picture of this scene. However, at the next stop, the two got off. Chin-mo walked out first. It was a street with good air, but without that fluffy head in front of his chest, he felt a little uncomfortable. But even so, Chin-mo didn't forget the young man's gaze when he stood under the building and looked up at the screen. They should know each other. It was impossible not to know from that gaze. But according to the information he got, the young man didn't have any interaction with Hoshino. That's right. Chin-mo had investigated Fujio. At the very beginning. Just how early was it? As early as the first time Coco pointed at the computer and showed him a beautiful character in the game. Spade Z. The letter Z at the end successfully caught his attention. Z0. The technique was very similar, and it matched with his understanding of Z back then. His suspicions grew even stronger when he found out that Spade Z was capable of cyber attacks. But when he found out that Spade Z was Fujio, that layer of suspicion completely faded away. Even though he did not know what Zero looked like, he was sure it was a woman. Chinemo tilted his head and glanced at the youngster beside him. And Fujio, the rich playboy who used to pester him to be his sugar daddy, was unlikely to be zero. But Chinemo didn't let go of any possibility. He sent someone to investigate where Fujio was on the day of the attack at the 5th Avenue 3 years ago. Chapter 345. Fujio saw that Chinemo was looking at her, and immediately smiled evilly. Then, she felt her inflamed eyes itch, so she raised her hand to rub them. Chinemo was one step faster than the youngster. He grabbed her wrist, and his side profile was handsome. "Don't touch, there are many germs on your hand." Fujio felt that this kind of minor illness was harder to treat than a broken arm. She just needed to reattach the broken arm. Something like eye inflammation. Really needed time. Feeling that the youngster couldn't bear it, Chinemo simply took the youngster back to the hotel. That posture made Manager Feng, who had just arrived in Tokyo, stunned. He couldn't figure out the situation. However, Manager Feng was the smartest not to ask what he shouldn't ask. Before the official battle, with the return of Manager Feng, the Supreme Alliance, who had been depressed all afternoon, finally felt a little more at ease. The next day, the snow stopped, and the sky was blue and beautiful. The friendly match was held at the training base yesterday. Since it was a friendly match, of course, the media wouldn't be informed. But some people in Tokyo would always know about it through some grapevine. There were 1 or 2 esports reporters who came. Of course, their focus was on Sakura Stream, not a team that didn't even enter the top 4 in Wuxia. In fact, there is no suspense at all in this match. One of the reporters adjusted his camera, feeling a little bored. The opponent will definitely be suppressed by Sakura Stream, and can't even move. Another reporter yawned. "You can't say that. There is still something to watch in this match, such as Shuji's performance. My boss told me to write more." Hearing their words, another Tokyo esports fan who came to watch the match shook his head in disagreement. Reporters these days, they just spout nonsense without investigating clearly. Although he was from Tokyo, he wasn't a fan of Sakura Stream. It was Chinemo of the Supreme Alliance. Last year, the Supreme Alliance didn't enter the top 4 completely, because Almighty Chin didn't participate. In this match, it was hard to say who would win. "They are coming." The 2 reporters suddenly became spirited, and their eyes also shook with excitement. Snap, snap, snap. 3 consecutive shots were taken at Sakura Stream Team, who entered the field. Sakura Stream Team's uniform was in line with the local aesthetic of Tokyo. On the back of the pure white shirt, there was a logo and blooming cherry blossoms. The tallest among them was their captain Yamaguchi. His height didn't look like someone who played esports, but more like someone who played basketball. Following closely behind was Shuji, who was the most popular candidate. He had a red bandage on his forehead, making his handsome face look even more devilish and murderous. As soon as the Sakura Stream people came in, the others who came to watch the battle also stood up. The arena wasn't big, but it could accommodate dozens of people. There were still a lot of Sakura Stream fans, and that side was full of spectators. In contrast, the audience on the opposite side of Sakura Stream School was calm and somewhat desolate. In Tokyo, it was not uncommon for people to fly from one city to another for their favorite esports players. From this, it could be seen that the other party's strength was nothing much. He didn't even have a die-hard fan. However, they did not know. The reason why there was no one here was because Supreme Alliance had always done things this way. In Manager Feng's words, every time their Almighty Chin showed his face, he had to pay by the second. How could he let anyone come in to watch and film? Chapter 346. The closer it was to the national competition, the more secretive their tactics were, the better it was for them. So Manager Feng simply hid the Supreme Alliance's movements. Even though the whole nation knew that the Supreme Alliance was in Tokyo, they didn't know where they were playing. TSK, so miserable. That reporter couldn't help but shake his head again. He thought it was a good topic, so he took a picture of the audience with only 1 or 2 people. Only by comparison can we show the strength of our Tokyo. Just as he was saying this, he heard a noise from the opposite side. Under the light and shadow, 13 people walked out neatly. Each of them was wearing the same uniform, a dark black coat with a circle of pure white fox fur, similar to a cloak, which made them look like knights that only appeared in comics. Which team's uniform looked like this? Wasn't it too extravagant? Extravagant? Was money a problem for the Supreme Alliance? Of course not. Manager Feng smiled like a fox, the kind that hid a knife in his smile. Qin Emo took the lead, Fujio stood on his left, and Yunhu stood on his right. Everyone had their own unique style, which immediately formed a handsome and threatening scenery. Especially Fujio's silver hair, which was simply eye-catching, not to mention the lollipop in her thin lips. The two reporters on the opposite side didn't expect that the people of this team would have such an aura. Especially the one who took the lead, so noble and domineering, with an indescribable sense of shock. So handsome. Is this the weak team from Wuxia? They look pretty good. Maybe it's just their good-looking faces. But they are too good-looking. People like them can be stars. No matter how good-looking they are, they will be destroyed today. Boys and girls had different ways of thinking. In the esports arena, what was the use of being good-looking? Good skills were the real handsome ones. Shuji, who was standing over there, also saw Fujio. He immediately turned his head, gave her a thumbs up, and then slowly fell down. This action of his caused a commotion among the audience. Sakura Stream. Victory. Sakura Stream. Victory. Amidst the loud cheers, Fujio looked at his actions. He had one hand in his pocket, and his handsome face didn't look annoyed. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up a little, looking like he didn't care at all. The youth's arrogant attitude was even more infuriating. Shuji narrowed his eyes, pointed at Fujio, and said to Yamaguchi, "Captain, I'll keep an eye on him." Yamaguchi didn't know about the conflict between them yesterday, so he was a little surprised by Shuji's request. "Okay, but remember, the person we're going to deal with this time is Qin Emo." "Qin Emo? Isn't it the one with the hand injury?" Shuji didn't take it seriously. "I'll leave him to you, Captain. I'll kill them after I'm done with that guy." Yamaguchi frowned. Shuji, Supreme Alliance is different from the teams we met before. Don't underestimate them. Chapter 347. Shuji seems to be fiercer than usual today. Ha, this is going to be interesting. When Shuji fights, even 4 people can't stop him. Is Shuji going to go on a killing spree? I'm looking forward to it. The passion of the fans was irresistible. In the midst of such cheers, Manager Feng shook hands with the manager of the other team with the same smile. "Shall we start?" The manager of Sakura Stream Team wanted to say a few more words to show off their achievements, or at least to finish the small talk. But after hearing Feng Yi's words, he swallowed his words to show his generosity. "Let's start." It was not an official competition, so there were no 1v1 or duo matches. There was only a 5v5 siege match. But even if it was a friendly match, it still followed the international esports rules. In the wild game of Hero, everyone could die an unlimited number of times, and come back to the city to be resurrected. But in a real esports competition, everyone could only die 3 times. After the 3rd time, they had to leave the computer. Obviously, the focus of the so-called siege matches was to attack the city. As long as the opponent's city was destroyed, they would win. This was also the difference between Hero and other games, as it paid great attention to the cooperation of the team. Shuji couldn't sit still anymore. He put on the black wristband and stood up. His eyes were fixed on Fujio, but Fujio just laughed and leaned back with a lollipop in her mouth, looking really handsome and annoying. According to Shuji's temper, he got angry immediately. "Little spade. What are you doing? Why are you staring at him?" Lin Feng wanted to make fun of her before going on stage. Unexpectedly, Fujio said seriously, "This guy is impetuous, so provoking him will help us. If you want to provoke him, don't do it here. Let's go on stage." Lin Feng was about to pull Fujio up. But at this time, Qin Mo's calm voice came over. "He won't go on stage." "What?" Not only Lin Feng, but also Yin Wuyao, who was next to him, was shocked. "Little Captain won't go on stage? Little Captain is so good at fighting he won't go on stage? Are you kidding me?" His eyes are inflamed, so he'd better not play games for 3 days. Qin Mo's face was still as elegant as ever. However, that invisible pressure never disappeared. Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao couldn't help but worry. If Spadesy wasn't there, their attack. Yunhu was calm. Captain, who's going to fight? You me Lin Feng Yin Wuyao. Qin Mo said, Shui Yao Yao. Shui Yao Yao was stunned. Her? Could she do it? There were so many Supreme Alliance members here. She really didn't expect the Almighty to choose her. Qin Mo didn't say anything. She reached out her hand and touched Shui Yao Yao's head. You're good at healing, so you'll be in charge of supporting the offense. Run back and forth in the wilderness and heal whoever you see dying. Don't worry, it'll be fine. With Brother Mo here, you have to believe that Almighty Qin chose you because he has faith in you. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth would twitch every time the youth said, oh. Qin Mo watched the youngster's actions. His eyes turned cold, but he didn't say anything. After the commentator and the referee were in position, Qin Mo stood up indifferently, tilted his handsome chin, and bit the zipper of his jacket with his thin lips. He took off the jacket with his right hand and threw it to Fujio. Let's go. Chapter 348. Baby Feng was left behind. And before Almighty Qin left, he gave him a very important task. That was to keep an eye on his idol, and not let that guy rub his eyes all the time. This was Almighty Qin's smoothness, but Feng Shang felt that this task was quite difficult, especially when he couldn't control his idol at all. Idol, Almighty Qin said not to let you rub your eyes. The Almighty is in the competition and can't see here. If you don't say anything, who will know? In fact, Fujio wanted to rub her eyes even more at this moment. It wasn't that she didn't believe in the Almighty's strength. She was worried about the Almighty's hand. But if the Almighty lost today, she would find a chance to kill Shuji more than 10 times. Thinking of this, Fujio was about to raise her hand again. Qin Mo happened to turn his head, and his deep eyes were full of meaning. This was why it was hard to deal with a psychic. Whatever she did, he would know in advance. Fujio had no choice. She put her hand down, smiled, and grabbed the phone that Baby Feng was keeping for the Almighty. Feng Shang felt that he really couldn't deal with his idol, the bandit. Could he find someone else to watch him? Fujio took the phone and sent a WeChat message to Qin Mo. Brother Mo, are you going to look back to see if I'm rubbing my eyes during the competition? Qin Mo paused, took out the phone from his pocket, and then tilted his head to type. If you don't want me to look back, be a good boy. Now give back the phone you took from Feng Shang. Seeing the Almighty looking at her, Fujio threw the phone at Feng Shang with a lollipop in her mouth and laughed. I told you not to give it to me. Why are you so disobedient? Feng Shang. Who was the one who came up to grab it? Who was it? The people of Sakura Stream also noticed that Fujio didn't come down. Shuji's eyes suddenly changed and he was very angry. What do you mean? He spoke in Tokyo dialect. But this didn't affect Manager Feng's acceptance. Oh, this is our battle lineup today. Little Spade won't participate. Won't participate. Shuji's hands were almost broken. He had prepared for a long time, but the other side told him that he wouldn't participate. Let him come down. Shuji gritted his teeth, his face fierce. After listening to his words, the fans in the audience began to look at each other. What's going on? I don't know. Shuji seems very unhappy. Did that team do something wrong? Taking advantage of the wind, Shuji sneered. Your unknown team without him. Are you sure you can beat me? Let me tell you. I want to compete with him. Tell him to come down. Yunhu understood Dongjing dialect. After hearing his words, he suddenly turned around, his aura extremely cold. Yamaguchi couldn't help reprimanding. Shuji. Shut up. Am I wrong? Shuji tilted his head. I know Captain is afraid of that Qin Mo. He hasn't played in the professional league for a year. How strong can he be? I'm giving Supreme Alliance a chance by sending that person out. Upon hearing this, Fujio's beautiful eyes narrowed. She held on to the railing with one hand and jumped down from the audience. Her black coat was lifted up, and her cool pose drew gasps from the audience. Chapter 349. Under everyone's gaze. That handsome young man, who looked like a vampire aristocrat, walked up to Shuji with his hands in his pocket. He was so bloodthirsty and cold, like an avenger coming out of the darkness. That Chinemo? Fujio tilted her head, and her eyes were cold. How dare you call my brother that? Shuji wasn't annoyed but felt his blood boiling. It's hot, isn't it? If it's hot, do it yourself. Do it myself. Fujio paused and curled up her lips. I won't. To be honest, I've met a lot of people like you. Why should I compete with you just because you want me to? Is the Sakura Stream team a bandit, forcing others to compete? Fengshang. Idle, believe me, no one looks more like a bandit than you right now. Fujio said this in a Tokyo accent, and the crowd burst into an uproar. The opponent's agent hurried over and said, No, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. Can't you guys just shut up and compete properly? Fujio was a very protective person, and in her mind, the Almighty was the only one who had made her suffer. If the opponent said bad things about the Almighty, it would be like asking for death. Chinemo didn't expect that the young man would have such a big reaction, although the timing wasn't right. But looking at the young man's fierce look, he was in a good mood for no reason. He walked over and rubbed the young man's head. Okay, go back. Remember, don't rub your eyes. Fujio. How did the Almighty do it? He didn't forget to warn her at this time. Shuji was so angry that his chest was churning. Now there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to destroy the opponent and make the young man regret what he said just now. Thinking of this, he turned his head and was the first to sit in front of the computer. He pulled his fingers and put on the pure black headphones. The agent finally let out a sigh of relief. After all, he couldn't control Shuji. The teammates of Sakura Stream Team didn't say anything. They knew what kind of player Shuji was. The opponent thought that Shuji was impatient and wanted to irritate him, but they didn't know that the angrier he was, the more brutal he would be when he killed someone. Compared to Shuji's murderous look, Almighty Chin was casual and noble. His slender fingers slid over the headphones, and he held the mouse in a very beautiful gesture. It made people feel like he wasn't holding a mouse, but a chess piece. In front of him was a chessboard. The young master was like jade. He didn't expect to see such inviolable people in modern times. This was the first thought that came to the minds of the audience. His second thought was, of course, to let Shuji kill them all as soon as possible. However, it was different from the people here. Among the two Supreme Alliance fans, one of them already felt like his blood was about to boil. 1 year. For a whole year, Almighty Chin hadn't played in a professional league like this. Although it was just a friendly match, only those who had played the game knew how exciting it was to be able to see it live. Crack. The game's music started playing. The scene officially entered. It was synchronized to the big screen in the arena. He's here. The two reporters raised their cameras. Even the commentators did not know why, but this time, they felt nervous like never before. Not to mention Shui Yaoyao, who was sitting in front of the computer. She only felt that her palms were sweating, but her eyes were very firm. This was the first battle. This was the first battle she would prove herself in. Attack. Chinemo said these words lightly, but with a different kind of power. Chapter 350. There were 3 ways to attack. Left, center, and right. These 5 players, except for Shui Yaoyao, were all professionals. Not to mention the opponent's lineup. Cool. So fast. Sakura Stream Team will win this round. Whether it was the 2 reporters or the fans in the audience, they all had the same opinion. After all, just from the screen, they knew that Sakura Stream Team was not only fast, but also had 3 players in the middle lane. Seeing that they had almost reached the Crystal Tower, 3 or 4 strong attacks, the firepower was very fierce. Destroyed. The tower is going to be destroyed. But was it really destroyed? They saw a person suddenly accelerate and rush directly to this side. Originally, the 3 players of Sakura Stream Team were not afraid. But they didn't expect that a stun came out of nowhere. The 3 players were collectively frozen. That person concentrated his energy, first killed one with a sweep, and finally turned back for a critical hit. Yunhu double kill. My god! Who is this person so powerful? The fans in the audience were a little stunned. However, other than Yunhu, no one else had seen the person who had used the fatal stun that had assisted him. The people of the Supreme Alliance finally breathed a sigh of relief. But even with a double kill, the situation was not optimistic. Because their bottom lane was attacked again. And Shuji double kill. Double kill? Did that mean that Yin Wuyao and Lin Feng didn't stop him? They were all killed by Shuji. The people of the Supreme Alliance trembled, everyone became nervous, and even clenched their hands. However, almost in the next second, Shui Yaoyao only saw a line of words appear on the screen in front of her. Our defense tower has been destroyed. Beautiful. The commentator couldn't help sighing in Tokyo dialect. It seems that Shuji's hand speed has become faster these days. His attack power is also amazing. This time, the people of the Supreme Alliance are in big trouble. Lin Feng didn't expect that he would die. His eyes were heavy, and he typed in the dialogue box. After the sneak attack, he retreated very fast. Should we add another player to go down the bottom lane? No need. The person who spoke was Qin Mo. Even though he was still fighting in front, no one expected him to have the time to reply. Both of you, walk in tandem, stick close to the bushes. Lin Feng grunted in acknowledgement. After recovering his health in the center of the city, he and Yin Wuyao continued to attack the bottom lane. Xiao and Ren are gone. Strange, there's nothing in the bushes here either. At this moment, someone shouted. He's on the middle lane. Shuji was indeed in the middle lane. He approached Qin Mo on purpose, looking for a chance to sneak attack. How could Lin Feng let him have his way? He sped up and blocked with his sword before sweeping horizontally. Motherf asterisk I didn't hit it. The other party was too fast and good at fighting in the wild, just like the information said. Even if he and Yin Wuyao worked together, they would only be able to take out half of his health. When Shuji restarted, his HP was full. Then he did another sweep. A rumbling sound rang out. Shuji double kill. Another double kill? Everyone in Supreme Alliance paled. For lives, Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao had already died twice. If they died again, they would be asked to leave the field by the referee. That also meant that the 5v5 would become a 3v5, 3 against 5. It would be a tough fight. Chapter 351. Fortunately, their performance in the middle lane was good, and they took down 2 defense towers in a row. The next defense tower was the opponent's main city. However, it was obvious that Yunhu's HP was gone, and only a little bit of HP was left to support him. Any random person would be able to kill him in a second. If Yunhu died, they would lose 5 lives. It seems that the situation of the Supreme Alliance is not optimistic. TSK, I guess Shuji is not interested in this game. His opponents are too weak. I know, right? That reporter curled his lips and looked very disdainful. I don't know what the opponent's captain is doing. Does he really deserve to be the captain? He is not even as good as that guy named Yunhu. Didn't Shuji just say that his hand was injured? Another reporter was quite understanding. I don't think it's because of the injury. It's because he is too lousy. When the discussion outside the field started, Fujia was still sitting in the same position, with her right hand behind her back and a lollipop in her mouth, but she didn't rub her eyes again. Feng Sheng was anxious. He wished he could be on the field now so he could help. At this time, Shuji had already started to attack the second defense tower on their right. Lin Feng was a little anxious and wanted to rush over. Then Qin Mo sent a message. Don't go out of the tower, just defend. It meant that they shouldn't attack. Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao also knew that it was not suitable for them to attack now. But they were worried about one thing. What if Shuji attacks the captain from the side when he sees that we don't go out? Yunhu's status showed that he was still healing in the city. That meant that there were only 2 people under the defense tower in the middle lane, Shui Yaoyao and the captain. If Shuji went over, it would probably be another double kill. Let him come. 3 words. A tone that was not painful at all. Even Yin Wuyao, who had never played with Qin Mo in the league tournament, felt an indescribable passion rise in his heart when he saw that sentence. As for Lin Feng, his eyes, which had been filled with anxiety, gradually calmed down. After killing the monsters, he ran back to the defensive tower. At this time, Shui Yaoyao sent a kill and killed a member of Sakura Stream Squad. Seeing this, Shuji immediately changed his route and went to outflank Qin Mo. This time, the other party is probably going to be annihilated. That's right, there's no point in killing one person. There are still 2 people left in Sakura Stream. Yo, are they starting to run back? I've never seen such a cowardly captain. While the reporters were still talking, the 2 members of Sakura Stream Squad rushed towards Qin Mo. Shui Yaoyao stood under the defense tower, her hand holding the mouse tightly. She had the urge to turn around and run. However, she didn't forget that before they set off, Almighty Qin said that this path was mainly for attacking, so she couldn't retreat. It was as though Supreme Alliance was being chased and beaten. Yinhu's HP was full. But what was the point? In such a short time, it was impossible for him to return to the middle lane to help. Chapter 352. What on earth is the captain of the Supreme Alliance doing? He can't even beat a female player. How on earth did he become the captain? That's right. Female players all know how to kill people. They don't know anything except being chased. Isn't this just in line with the image of the Chinese people? Speaking of this, the audience burst into laughter. The 2 players of Sakura Stream Squad were in a killing frenzy, and they rushed forward recklessly. Yamaguchi was still on the left lane, and he was about to tell them not to go. But it was too late. The 2 players saw that Shuji was about to arrive, so they didn't have anything to be afraid of. They had to kill each other once. They are looking for death. These 4 were Fujio's words. She had a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, but if you looked closely, you would find that it was full of bloodthirst. As soon as she finished her words, the 3 of them appeared behind Qin Mo. Shuji was behind the 2 players. The people in front of him launched 2 big moves at Qin Mo. According to logic, 2 killing 1 should be enough. But in that second, Qin Mo moved and avoided one of the attacks. When the other attack came, he had already entered the defense line. How could the people of Sakura Stream Squad miss such a good opportunity? Now in their minds, Qin Mo's skills were so bad that they couldn't be any worse. Probably because of his hand injury, his momentum was so weak that it was pitiful. Shuji didn't care about the opponent's reason. With such bad skills, how could he fight with him? He waved the mouse and sped up, ready to kill Qin Mo and Shui Yaoyao together. It was so aggressive. The fans of Sakura Stream Squad already felt that there was no suspense. It was absolutely a double kill. However, what they didn't expect was that Qin Mo, who they thought was very bad, actually turned a sword shadow at this moment, and a huge wind rose around him. The bright light almost occupied the whole screen. The 2 players closest to him were instantly killed by his 2 back and forth movements, and they only had 1 drop of HP left. The 2 players of Sakura Stream Squad were stunned, and they wanted to run back immediately. At this time, Shui Yaoyao swept across with a big move and with a bang 2 kills. Shuji didn't retreat. He also saw that the captain of the Supreme Alliance could only sweep back and do nothing else. Although the sweep was quite accurate, it was useless against him. Shuji wielded the keyboard, manipulated his game character, and directly stabbed Qin Mo's face. Before the commentator could say anything, the fans shouted, "Is that person stupid? He ran so hard just now, and now he's sending himself to death." Shuji also narrowed his eyes, and the murderous intent in the corner of his mouth was obviously mocking. "Trash, go to hell." With his speed, no one could stop him. Unless it was that young man, there was still a possibility. Someone else? Shuji. Yamaguchi almost couldn't help but shout. However, it was already too late. The moment the opponent ran over, Qin Mo leaped up. Even his silver battle robe had a white halo around it as he used a critical strike. Under the dazzling special effect, people could only see that 2/3 of Shuji's HP bar was instantly killed. It's alright. Shuji's hands were fast, he could definitely run away. Those are the words of a reporter. Fujio sat there, and curled up the corner of her mouth. You aren't the only people in the world who are fast at cultivating. Run away? Since he had fished her up. Chapter 353. Fujio tilted her head, and with a lollipop in her mouth, she gently spat out 2 words. Heo. Then. The people on the scene only heard a booming sound. Chinemo turned his hand over, holding the mouse and pressing the keys with his left hand. The long sword flashed and hit Shuji right in the middle. That kind of attack. Handsome, unruly, and invincible. Everyone looked at this scene in a daze, and they all felt an unprecedented shock from their eyes. What on earth was that? 3,000 knife cutting. This is the real 3,000 knife cutting. A fan of the Supreme Alliance stood up in the audience, and his voice was so loud that it almost shook people's eardrums, which showed how excited he was. 3,000 knife cutting? What was that? People almost didn't believe that Shuji would die like this. However, the screen did show the logo of KO. They looked down and saw Chinemo, who was sitting in front of the computer. That man was so handsome that he looked like he came out of a comic book. He wore headphones on his pure black hair, and the whole screen was filled with silver light. However, did he think that it was over? Not at all. The man's slender fingers held the mouse, and with a very handsome posture, he turned around and rushed straight. Only a booming sound. The last defense crystal tower in the middle lane of Sakura Stream Team was destroyed. The commentators couldn't come out. How could they explain it? Not only did he kill people, but he also went back to attack the city. The people of Sakura Stream Team suddenly fell into silence. In one team, there were 4 people in the state of resurrection. Except for Yamaguchi, who was on the road, he was still there. The other 3 players only felt that their arms were numb. What on earth was that? Yamaguchi's deep voice came over. 3,000 knife cutting. Isn't 3,000 knife cutting a unique skill? This was what everyone understood it to mean. They all knew that when the captain of the Supreme Alliance turned around to deal with them for the first time, he used this unique skill. 3,000 silver lights flashed, they all saw it. But what was that later? This time, Yamaguchi not only lowered his voice, but also his eyes. For Chinemo, 3,000 knife cutting is not just a simple unique skill, but 3 goals he wants to achieve. Originally, there was no time to talk. But Yamaguchi couldn't rush to the middle lane. Rushing over was courting death. On the contrary, if he destroyed another tower here on the top lane, they still had hope to win. After listening to Yamaguchi's description, the 3 members of Sakura Stream were all stunned. 3 targets. What the captain meant was, that person had planned it from the very beginning. First, he would reduce the 2 of them to 1 drop of HP. Then let his teammates kill them. Then he would go and kill Shuji. His final goal was to attack their defense tower. What 3,000 knife cutting? It's just luck. Shuji was very unconvinced, and his eyes were gloomy. If I also had a teammate to heal me, I could also continuously cast spells and have a healer keep up with me. 3 targets? Ha, then I will break his saber. After saying that, Shuji rushed out. 2 of the Sakura Stream members didn't believe that anyone could have such a precise plan. They waved their weapons and shouted, "I'll heal. I'll support you." The 3 of them set off together. Yamaguchi didn't have time to stop him. Chapter 354. He didn't trust Yamaguchi 100%. His commanding power was scattered, and he was arrogant and conceited. People who didn't know would think they had 2 captains now. Maybe this was the disadvantage of a rookie king. He was too arrogant, and the manager of Sakura Stream Team didn't want to discipline him. The Almighty had probably noticed this from the start. That was why he attacked like this. But compared with provoking people, the Almighty was better. He knew that Shuji was easily agitated, but he killed him in the grass with the field battle that Shuji was good at. It could be seen that Shuji had lost all his judgment. As soon as he saw Chinemo turn around and run, he immediately ordered, "Chase him." But they didn't notice that Yin, who had resurrected at this time. Yin Wuyao and Lin Feng on the right side also began to quickly move to the center. All of a sudden, they formed an encirclement on the left and the front. Seeing that the people chasing in front of him were gone, Shuji realized something and wanted to retreat. But Yunhu and Shui Yaorao had already rushed over. They had seen Yunhu's fierceness, so they used a big move. One of them immediately lost half of his HP. The two who had only died once thought that Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao didn't dare to fight close to them at this time, so they wanted to attack Yunhu and then retreat. But they didn't expect that the opponents didn't hesitate at all. They directly rushed over and stood in front of Yunhu, and then used a big move. KO. 2 members of Sakura Stream Team died instantly. Shuji was the first to notice the danger, so he directly jumped into the grass without saying anything. He wanted to ambush there, and when Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao came over, he would give them a big move from the back. Because it was clear that Lin Feng and Yin Wuyao had lost HP. Yunhu went to kill their captain, so he was the most suitable person to guard here. But what Shuji didn't expect was that as soon as he squatted down, swoosh, his back was pierced through. It was just like when he had killed someone before. Someone had hidden in the bushes and slashed him with a knife. Who was it? Shuji's eyes were red. He moved his mouse and wanted to fight back. But it was useless. Qin Mo moved beautifully and fixed him with skills. Then he started to beat him up. Shuji had never been humiliated like this before. The people in the Sakura Stream audience didn't know what to say, and everyone covered their mouths. The 2 reporters were even more speechless. Those fans who said that it was in line with the style of Chinese people shut their mouths. His face hurt from the slap. But Feng Shang didn't understand. Idol, why didn't the Almighty use a critical strike and kill him directly? Why is he still beating him up bit by bit? Fujio wasn't sure either. If it were her, she could just freeze and kill him directly, which would save a lot of time. However, very soon they knew the answer. Qin Mo typed slowly. Does it feel good to kill you like this? Shuji, who had a little bit of HP left, might have had a chance to escape. With a bang, he stood up from his seat. He clenched his fists and looked over at Supreme Alliance with a dark gaze. Qin Mo took advantage of this gap and moved his mouse, KO. The enemy's entire team was annihilated. Fujio looked at this scene and seriously compared herself with the Almighty. In comparison, the Almighty was more shameless. What was the name of her provocation just now? It was not as real as the Almighty's provocation. Chapter 355. Shuji's face turned red and white as he watched himself fall down in blood. He didn't understand why the other party had to kill him like this, bit by bit. Manager Feng understood a little. After all, he knew his Almighty so well. According to the Almighty's style, he wouldn't cut people down so slowly, unless... Has this Shuji met Boss Qin before? Feng Yi asked his brother. Feng Shang stuttered as he recounted what had happened at the training ground that day. His face was filled with anger. After Manager Feng heard this, he instantly understood and said meaningfully, CEO Qin is helping someone get revenge. Revenge? Feng Shang didn't understand. Then the person who won that day was my idol. Feng Yi patted his brother's shoulder. Young man, you're still too young. Boss Qin was the kind of person who would blame Spadezi's eye inflammation on that match. So when he killed Shuji, it was clear that he wanted to hang him up and beat him. Yamaguchi knew that they were bound to lose this game. He wanted to go back and defend, but he was the only one who had resurrected. He could no longer withstand the attacks of the other 5. Individually, everyone in Sakura Stream might have great abilities, and any one of them was much more powerful than Shui Yaoyao, but they were too scattered. 5 people attacked the city together. How could Yamaguchi resist? Especially when Qin Mo changed his previous attacking style. After seeing Yamaguchi, he didn't even hesitate. First he stunned him, and then he made a big move. Then he retreated and unleashed another long-range critical strike. His hand speed was so fast that it was almost beautiful. Apart from the silver light flashing again, the only thing that could be seen was a brief pause before he raised his sword and advanced again. Qin Mo gave an order to Yunhu, who was standing beside him. Stop them. Yes. Yunhu didn't waste time. He risked losing HP and rushed in for a critical strike. As Yamaguchi fell, Shui Yaoyao sent out a healing skill, and all the Supreme Alliance members were instantly full of HP. The 5 of them unleashed their ultimate moves in succession, directly destroying the enemy's city. The silver letters that symbolized victory filled the entire screen. Shuji didn't even have the chance to revive. He could only watch helplessly. Yamaguchi's right hand seemed to be shocked. He originally thought that he could at least hold on until all his teammates were resurrected. However, what he didn't expect was, compared to the greenhorn Chin Mo of the past, the current Chin Mo was frighteningly strong. How did he do it? How did he calculate so accurately? The audience of Sakura Stream School fell into complete silence this time. They had never expected such an ending. Sakura Stream was one of the top 4 teams in the country. How could they be beaten by a small Chinese team to the point where they were powerless to retaliate? But reality was right in front of him. They had no choice but to believe it. At the same time, the most valuable member of the team appeared on the screen. Chin Mo. At this moment, some people were unconvinced. Even if the Wuxia team wins, shouldn't the MVP award be given to Shuji? He got 2 double kills. Even the captain of Supreme Alliance didn't kill many people. What right does he have to be the MVP? However, in the next second, these people automatically fell silent. This was because the opponent's battle record had also appeared on the screen. Chapter 356. 10 assists. When did this happen? Why didn't they notice it? And the whole Sakura Stream team only died 12 times in total. That was to say, 10 of them were related to Chin Mo? Is the data wrong? Some people didn't believe it at all. But one of the processes of the esports competition was that the most valuable players' fighting scene would be shown separately. People didn't know what was going on until Chin Mo's actions were enlarged on the screen. They didn't realize it until they saw it. At the beginning, half of the reason why Tiger Cloud could kill so quickly was because Chin Mo had stunned the opponent from behind, which fixed the members of Sakura Stream Squad on this side. Not to mention that Shui Yaoyao's first kill was also because of Chin Mo. People didn't see it before because Chin Mo's speed was too fast. Now, after being replayed, people realized how beautiful Chin Mo's operation was and how fast his hand speed was. Under the dazzling silver screen, technical movement, and every attack had a purpose. How well did he know each skill to be able to do this? The Supreme Alliance's captain, who they had been yelling about, only knew how to run away, had done so many things without them knowing. Another surprising thing was that he didn't die at all. And he never went back to the city. He only relied on the health bags along the way and Shui Yaoyao's healing to KO the whole team. The most valuable player that couldn't be refuted. Seeing such a result, everyone shut up. The expressions of the fans, who originally wanted to argue, were obviously frozen. Shuji lowered his head, clenched his hands, and pressed his thin lips into a line. But now he didn't have the right to be angry. The obvious gap was there. He did kill 4 times, but he didn't have a single assist. But what about the opponent? 10 times. Shuji had thought that the teenager was the best in the Supreme Alliance. Now it didn't seem so. That man didn't talk much from beginning to end. He just stood there, with a handsome and noble side profile. He thought he was just a soft-footed shrimp. He didn't even care about the captain's warning, and just rushed forward. But Shuji's chest had never been so depressed. If he could do it again, he would never be like this. What he regretted the most was underestimating the man named Chin Mo. The 2 reporters were speechless. Amidst the great silence, the members of Supreme Alliance took off their headphones and stood up. Perhaps it was because they were wearing the same uniform. He always gave people the feeling that he could sweep away an army of 1,000. When Chin Mo was walking back, Fujio was already standing there. Her left hand was in her pocket, and her right arm was raised high. She was smiling. Chin Mo extended his hand as well. There was a clap. The 2 of them clapped handsomely. Such a scene would only make one's blood boil. Those who saw it would never be able to feel that kind of shock as those who experienced it personally. Shui Yaoyao's palms were still sweating. A lot of people said that Almighty Chin's mechanics were amazing, but she didn't feel much about it. After all, She was a girl and couldn't understand it. Even when she played games in the past, she only felt that Almighty Chin's mechanics were amazing. But now her heart was beating. He couldn't suppress his throbbing for a long time. Everything stemmed from personal experience. Almighty Chin's every assist, every move, every defense, and every kill. Only she could see it clearly. So much so that after the game was over, her fingers were trembling. Not because of timidity, not because of her previous inferiority complex. But she had a firm belief. She wanted to stay in the Supreme Alliance, even if many people didn't think highly of this industry. Even if she would suffer all kinds of ridicule. She still wanted to stay. Even if she failed one day, she wouldn't regret having such a reckless youth. Compared with the solemn atmosphere of the Supreme Alliance, the atmosphere of Sakura Stream Team was too stiff. The agent probably hadn't come back to his senses yet. In his mind, this was just a small game, and he could easily beat the opponent. But the result? If this kind of thing got out, he didn't know how much face he would lose. The agent got angry. He walked in front of Yamaguchi and growled. How on earth did you become the captain? Or are you too old, and your hand speed can't keep up? If you can't be the captain, let Shuji be. Look at your own record. Have you ever killed a person? Yamaguchi didn't speak, but his face was too silent. When his hair fell down, no one could see his expression clearly. Fujio listened to the admonishment, and subconsciously raised her eyebrows. Because it was too quiet around them, every word that the agent said was clearly heard by everyone. Fengyi, who was also the agent, glanced over here. You can't even beat a small team. Yamaguchi, I am now officially informing you that you are not suitable to be the captain of Sakura Stream Team. I will report this to the club. If you insist on this, then I have to ask the manager to come forward and directly kick you out of Sakura Stream Team. This is also for the development of the team. After all, you are too old to play anymore. Yamaguchi didn't want to give up. I have already said that Shuji should be the captain, but you said that now is not the right time. Look at the final result. You can't even beat a small team. Hearing that, In Wuyao only felt that it was very familiar. Once upon a time, he was also treated like this. You are so old. Why are you still playing esports? Look at yourself. Can you still make money? He thought he had forgotten all about it. In fact, the pain hidden in the bottom of his heart would all come out as long as he mentioned it. Why couldn't he play esports when he was old? There were many reasons for losing a game. Shouldn't he think about how to become stronger? In Wuyao didn't dare to look back. He was afraid that if he looked back he would see his past self. He understood something that no one else could understand. Yamaguchi, the player he respected very much, couldn't escape the fate of being abandoned like this. And he couldn't do anything about it. However, at this time, two voices rang in his ears at the same time. One was cold and indifferent, and the other was smiling evilly. Are you sure he is the reason for losing? It was the captain and the captain. In Wuyao jerked his head up and looked in their direction. Chapter 357. Fujio put her arm on Chinmo's shoulder and said with a smile in her voice, since Sakura Stream Team doesn't want their main force, Brother Mo, how about we poach him? Chin-mo said faintly and looked at the agent. How much is the price? Yamaguchi is a heavyweight player, so it shouldn't be low. You can ask for anything. If you can invite him, the Supreme Alliance will be very happy. This is directly talking about money? The agent really couldn't see how worthy Yamaguchi was to be poached. He opened his mouth wide and was stunned there. Yamaguchi was the most shocked. He raised his head and looked at his former opponent, and his eyes shook violently. It was not that he wasn't disappointed. In front of so many people, when the agent accused him, he had thought that the players he had coached would speak for him. But there was no one. The feeling of being abandoned was so obvious that he didn't even want to say a word. He could only say that the times were different. He still remembered when they used to compete. That group of old friends would look for reasons after they lost, and they would eat sushi and drink sake when they found the reason. But his old friends all left, and he didn't want to leave. He thought he could still play, and he wanted to stay because he liked this industry. It turned out that he was still too naive. just when he thought he was going to be crushed by this sense of powerlessness. He didn't expect that the people who stood up for him were his opponent Chin-emo, and the silver-haired teenager who Shuji said he would teach a lesson. Enough. That was enough. Yamaguchi stood up, as if a heavy responsibility had been removed from his body. Sorry, I refuse. I still want to have another fight with the Supreme Alliance, a serious fight. However, I will not stay in Sakura Stream Team. I will go to a better team, so that I can be worthy of you. When he said this, his eyes were bright. The more he respected his opponent, the more his attitude was like this. Chin-emo glanced at him and said only 4 words in a flat voice. I'll wait for you. Then he wanted to turn around. As for the reaction of the agent and players of Sakura Stream Team, he didn't care at all. Fujio was still laughing. She said softly. If it weren't for Captain Yamaguchi, my brother Emo would have killed all of you in seconds. Bro, before you teach people a lesson, look at the results. Did you see the assists? Also, Captain Yamaguchi destroyed 2 of our defense towers on the way. If it wasn't for the fact that we had to return to defend against your men, our last defense tower would have been taken down by him. If you don't know anything, ask more. Don't make yourself look so ignorant. If Fujio didn't say it, Sakura Stream fans wouldn't know what was going on. Now that he heard the reason, he understood everything. There were quite a few old fans among them, and they immediately stood up. His eyes looked at Yamaguchi. Lord Yamaguchi, we'll go wherever you go. It wasn't much, but it was enough to shake people's hearts. It was not only Yamaguchi who felt touched, but also In Wuyao. The reason why they were able to persevere until now was because of God. Apart from the fact that it was their dream, it was also because the people who supported them were still around. Although there was only a little bit of light. However, as long as these people were still around, they had the motivation to continue forward. And on Sakura Stream's side, Chapter 358. That agent didn't expect this situation. He said those words just to let Yamaguchi know his position, but now, looking at those condemnations from all directions, especially when there were reporters standing in front of them, as if they wanted to write this scene into the news, he only felt that the sweat on his forehead was about to come out, and then he said softly, Yamaguchi, you know I don't mean that. It's just that the result this time is not good. Don't talk about leaving so easily. Your contract is still there, and it's not good for anyone. Obviously, the agent was telling Yamaguchi not to make trouble. But this time Yamaguchi, who had always been patient, couldn't bear it anymore. I will pay the liquidated damages, and from now on, I will have nothing to do with Sakura Stream Club. Fujio heard that and looked at Yamaguchi seriously. Captain Yamaguchi, let my brother Emo pay. It doesn't matter if you don't join the Supreme Alliance. Our family is also a club. Within a year, we have sent countless esports elites to China such as me. So you can consider joining me, and the treatment is... Yamaguchi looked at the youngster. Before he finished his words, he was dragged away by Chin-emo by the back of his collar. That indifferent and noble voice could be heard faintly. Countless esports elites? Such as you? Oh, besides you, who else is trained by the He clan? Yao Yao, Baby Feng, Uncle In, Brother Emo, you can't not see them. Fujio was dragged like that, still trying to move Yamaguchi. Captain Yamaguchi, you also saw that among the players who just played, there was our He clan army. I welcome you here at any time. Yamaguchi. I always feel that the youngster is not looking for people to join, but more like promoting a product. After listening to Fujio, he went straight to the point. 2 are self-taught and 1 is a top-notch player. He just joined the He clan the day before the game. Have you trained him before? Fujio felt that the Almighty was tearing down her stage and not cooperating with her at all, which was really not good. So she hooked up her lips and smiled. Even if it's only me, it's worth countless people. Little Fujio. Chin-emo let go of his hand and stopped. Fujio finally saved her collar. She tidied it up and didn't even look up. Brother Emo, is that your nickname for me? Hearing this, Chin-emo turned his head, his left hand empty, and he gently patted the youngster's face. If you don't shut up, I'm going to be even more intimate with you. He was threatening her again. Fujio felt that she couldn't live with this anymore. She was just about to go over and flirt with him, but she couldn't resist his next sentence. Your eyes are still a little red. Where are the eye drops? It's in my pocket. Fujio felt that she was being too obedient. Perhaps it was because he was rarely taken care of. Once he had a taste of it, he felt that he could calm down. In Wuyao stood at the side, his eyes unmoving. After noticing that Uncle In was looking at her, Fujio tilted her head and smiled, as if she didn't need to say anything. In Wuyao paused for a moment, then laughed along with them. A large part of the reason why the captain stood out this time was that the current Yamaguchi was very similar to him in the past. I don't remember who said that if you are injured, don't give up. Let those injuries become your armor in battle. Chapter 359. It wasn't that he didn't envy them, but he knew that his position wasn't there. Yamaguchi looked at the way Supreme Alliance got along with each other from afar. His eyes were full of light. He took off his Sakura Stream jacket and walked away. The reporters were still holding their cameras to record this scene. Sakura Stream would be discredited this time. After the photos were posted on the internet, it attracted a lot of domestic teams to watch. After all, it was different from Tokyo. Even if Supreme Alliance didn't enter the national top 4, everyone knew their strength. Although this ability is strong, it is not as good as Xiangnan. This was a very pertinent comment given by a retired esports player. No one from Xiangnan responded, but some other team members expressed their agreement. Because on the next day, another video appeared on the internet. It was the friendly match between Xiangnan and Sakura Stream. It was the same 5v5, but Xiangnan only had 2 deaths, while the other side had 13 deaths. The numbers were enough to prove how strong the Xiangnan team was. In contrast, Supreme Alliance's result was not so beautiful. There is a gap when there is a comparison. Supreme Alliance is still a little bit worse. Take the number of kills, Xiao Taiying 7 kills and 10 assists, while Almighty Qin 3 kills and 10 assists. It seems that the hand injury has a certain impact on Almighty Qin's performance. Such a result is not so good for ordinary people in the national competition, but for Almighty Qin. It seems that this year's national champion will be given to Xiangnan again. Based on the current situation, that's right. There would be some people who made comments on the internet to make advance announcements, which were usually based on data analysis. But they forgot one thing. When Supreme Alliance was fighting against Sakura Stream, Spadesy didn't appear, and the opponent's strong player, Yamaguchi, was still there. When Xiangnan was fighting against Sakura Stream, Yamaguchi had already announced his withdrawal from the club. But it was also a good thing that the opponent didn't send the strongest lineup. But it was not certain who would win in the national competition, because Shui Yaoyao always believed that the young man sitting in front of her was the biggest key to whether Supreme Alliance could win the national competition. When the plane took off, the blue sky of Tokyo was left behind. They returned with honor. This was an experience that Shui Yaoyao had never experienced before. Fujio was still next to Qin Mo. Fujio hadn't realized that the Almighty was a kind-hearted man before, but ever since her eyes got inflamed, the Almighty had become much gentler to her. Although he would still occasionally be mean with his words, at least he wouldn't mock her intelligence. The way the two of them interacted with each other made Coco a little surprised. After all, at the beginning, when Captain chased after Spadesy, he really wanted to kill him. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Coco tilted his head and glanced at his captain, who was applying eye drops to Fujio's handsome face. He still felt that this world was a bit too fantastical. Usually, when two people with the same distinct personality and different personality, there would usually be conflicts. So it was because heroes cherished heroes. After Coco gave himself a convincing excuse, he turned his head away. He was afraid that if he saw too much, he would overthink things. It was all the fault of those CP jokes on Weibo that were too realistic. She always gave him a sense of immersion. Chapter 360. The two of them didn't feel anything. It was just their personalities. Being with the right person, anything was easy, so they didn't feel like they were showing off their love. Fujio closed one eye, trying to avoid the stinging pain. Chin Mo casually turned the young man's face over. Don't hide. Fujio swore that this was the best time she had ever been urged when her eyes were inflamed. In fact, it was true. The redness in her left eye had disappeared, and only the corner of her eye was a little itchy. If it weren't for the eye drops, she wouldn't have felt the inflammation. Fujio looked very obedient after applying the medicine. After all, her looks and hair color were there. Lin Feng looked back and touched his chin. Did you notice that little spade's skin is very good? It's different from ours. It looks very delicate up close. As he said this, Lin Feng wanted to poke Fujio's face. But before his fingertips could touch the young man, he was fixed on the spot by an indifferent gaze. That gaze was very oppressive. Lin Feng froze. He didn't offend the captain, did he? Why was the captain looking at him like that? Yin Hu was smarter. He reached out and pulled Lin Feng's wrist back. Don't you want to drink your Coke? Drink. Lin Feng drank his Coke while looking at Fujio, who had her eyes closed. Still too tender, even more tender than a girl. Hearing this, Shui Yaoyao raised her head abruptly. Fujio closed her eyes and laughed evilly. Don't worry, Almighty Lin. As the beauty of the team, you are also very tender. That elongated, oh, made everyone in the team burst into laughter. Yeah, Lin Feng, you are still talking about little Spade. Look at yourself. You are so beautiful. Didn't the talent in your department write you a love letter? Take it out and have a look. F***ck off. That cataract. I don't look like a girl at all. Damn it. Fujio interrupted. You look like a girl everywhere. Lin Feng. Captain, control little Spade. Chin Mo glanced at him and said indifferently, I don't care. Lin Feng was dumbfounded. Fujio smiled happily. Lin Feng decisively turned his head away. He couldn't PK in real life, so he would have to rely on external forces in the future. Fujio was originally quite obedient, but after being provoked by Lin Feng, she was more or less energized. She wanted to open her eyes and say something. Chin Mo tilted his head when he saw the movement beside him. He reached out and put the youngster's hat on, his voice deep and pleasant. You want to mess around again, MMH? Fujio leaned back with the corners of her mouth curling up slightly. She looked like she was very obedient. Shui Yaoyao let out a sigh of relief. She was afraid that the topic would continue. His Highness Jio's skin was really too good. Fortunately, there were quite a few boys like this in the school. After all, there were more gays now, and many guys had started to apply skincare products. But there was no one as handsome as Highness Jio. They were all very feminine. Highness Jio, on the other hand, was very handsome, especially when she had seen Highness Jio fight with others. That kind of ruthlessness could more or less reduce people's suspicions of Highness Jio. However, how long could this peace last? After returning to Rivertown, they would begin the National League. This meant that he would have to go to another city to participate in the regional competition in the 3 northeastern provinces. At that time, he would not be able to avoid staying in the same room as others. The others were fine, but if it was Almighty Qin. Chapter 361. Back in Jiang City, Fujio had just woken up, and her silver hair was still sticking up. Her left hand was subconsciously rubbing the corner of her eye, and a pure black school bag was hanging on her right shoulder. That lazy, beautiful young man attracted a lot of cheers as soon as he appeared. There he is. F***ck, it's really my big Spade. Looks like the news is right. If you want to take a photo, hurry up. Where's Almighty Qin? I want to take a photo of Almighty Qin. I want to take a photo of both of them. It was different from the silence when Supreme Alliance left. This time, it seemed like someone had gotten the news that they were going back to China. Many fans had been waiting at the airport since morning. Anyway, there were only 3 flights from Tokyo, so they would be able to make it. Finally, their hard work paid off. As soon as Fujio came out, their eyes lit up, not to mention the dozens of people in the same uniform lined up behind her. What a feeling! The girls were very excited, and in an instant, a group of people rushed over. Fujio paused and turned back to look at Qin Mo. What was going on? It was this kind of slow reaction right after waking up that made people's blood boil. Looking at the Almighty when there's a problem, I give full marks for that look. Is my spade still in a daze? Look at his blank face, ha ha ha. What do you know? He's always like this. Hearing people talking about her in such a way, Fujio curled up her lips slightly. She opened her long legs and walked over to those dozens of girls. She was both seductive and cool. Ooh, too aggressive. That tone, it was incomparable. Shoo, be good, be quiet, or you'll disturb others. Let me tell you something in secret. Since the Almighty hasn't come, you can say that the Almighty is a he, and I'll give you sweets. Fujio said as she looked back, still smiling. Those dozens of girls had never seen the young man so closely before. Previously, they had only seen him in pictures on the internet. Even in game videos, they only showed the game scenes. Spadesy was really handsome and gentle in this way. What should I do with the feeling of being electrocuted? Their hearts were beating so fast. But for them to say that the Almighty was a slave, they really couldn't do it. Just as the girls were in a dilemma, Qin Mo walked over. Without a word, he dragged Fujio behind him like he was dragging a sack. Then he looked sideways at Feng Yi and said, I'll leave this to you. Don't worry. Feng Yi's ability to socialize is showing. But this time it was easier to settle. It was all because of the young man's performance. It was obvious that these girls were still intoxicated. When the aunties at the airport saw this scene, they thought that some fans were picking up celebrities. But what was praiseworthy was that these fans were not like what they had seen before. They were either very noisy, or they were so excited that they almost fainted, making it inconvenient for others, and they even had to dispatch security guards to maintain order. Not bad. The aunties thought that Fujio was the obvious one, and they glanced at the youngster. He even felt that when he had nothing to do, he could go home and do some research and watch the TV series that this young man had acted in. It was a beautiful misunderstanding. An ordinary girl like Shui Yaoyao would never have imagined such a scene. Chapter 362. It was a uniform sound. People in the airport couldn't help but look back. Because they were all girls with good manners, with youthful and firm eyes. It didn't make people feel noisy, but they wanted to stop and see what was going on. Among those fans, someone even smiled at Shui Yaoyao, waving a sign with the word, Yao on it. Shui Yaoyao paused. So this was the feeling of being recognized. For too long, she had been called fat, poor, and eccentric. Even if she had dreams, the neighbors would only laugh at her. Originally, she would always be in that darkness. Now, Shui Yaoyao looked up at the tall and straight figure walking in front of her. Sunshine, justice, are they finally coming? Of course, there would be people taking photos of Fujio and Qin Mo, especially when the two of them were walking together, and one of them was holding the other's collar. Weibo cried again because of their cuteness. Is the Almighty going to pack up Big Spade and bring him home? I really envy the girls at the scene. Isn't this scene too loving? When the people at the scene pass by, I just want to say, Big Spade is so handsome, and I will never say that Big Spade is the one on the bottom. Good attack. I'm about to be conquered. Come on, give me some blood. It was because of this popularity that couldn't be suppressed no matter how hard it was suppressed. The bad comments about Supreme Alliance were suppressed little by little. Manager Feng was in this line of work, so he knew when to release the right news. Some people who didn't understand the situation of the game, and easily made assessments, such as how Supreme Alliance might not be able to enter the top 4 of the National League this time, weren't suitable for a team that had just won to listen to such unrealistic judgments. Supreme Alliance did have many problems. For example, the new team members hadn't gotten used to each other yet, and some of their adaptability hadn't been mastered yet. But these weren't problems for Feng Yi. The most precious thing for a growing team was to keep the original heart. And Feng Yi believed that as long as Supreme Alliance had Qin Mo, they would never lose. What's more, they had Spadesy now. Out of the airport, there was a special business car waiting for them. After all the players got in the car, the reporters arrived. What's going on? Lin Feng felt that something wasn't right here. Coco, who was still replying to messages, opened the Weibo he saw. I think it's because of these comments. Lin Feng took a look and raised his eyebrows. Are they all saying that we can't compare with Xiangnan? Yeah, probably because of this result. When Coco finished his sentence, everyone on the bus saw Xiangnan's numbers. The atmosphere suddenly became much quieter. Fujiu leaned back and looked at Qin Mo. The Almighty's face didn't change at all. It was as if these things didn't affect him at all. 70%? Chapter 363. Fujiu leaned back and said faintly, I've played with the Almighty a few times. Brother Mo has always been the main attacker, and assists are just a matter of convenience. I think this time he's been assisting in order to coordinate with everyone. When I'm up, I can change the strategy. Was that so? The Supreme Alliance members looked over. The captain didn't refute, which meant that Little Spade's guess was all right. Fujio felt a little strange, and her beautiful eyebrows lifted. You've been in the team with the Almighty for 2 years, and you don't know that he's the main attacker? Lin Feng and Coco looked at each other, and they didn't know what to say. Yunhu said because the team needs it, so the captain has been assisting in the past 2 years. In other words, the Almighty had never played what he was best at, because the team needed it. After hearing this answer, not only Fujio paused, but everyone else's expression changed too. You never told me. Lin Feng glanced at Yunhu, his eyes wavering. Yunhu was calm. I only realized it after watching a short video of Captain and Little Spade playing wild games. It turns out that Captain's main attacker is better. Lin Feng still wanted to say something, but no matter what he said, he felt as if his throat was blocked. It turned out that Captain had done so much without them knowing. Qin Mo was very calm. You seem to be very touched? The big men of the Supreme Alliance nodded in unison. Qin Mo smiled. In that case, everyone should add an hour of hand speed practice every day. You can't just talk about being touched. Lin Feng, Yunhu, Coco, Fatty and the others. Sure enough, you can't be too touched by Captain. The true nature of a businessman, an evil capitalist. Wait a minute, other than when Captain and Little Spade were playing in the wilderness, there weren't any videos. That means that the other teams don't know that Captain will be the main attacker in the future, right? Lin Feng's mind was finally enlightened for once. Feng Yi sat in the passenger seat, turning back at the right time, revealing his fox's tail. Now do you understand why my eyes lit up the moment I saw Little Spade? I was determined to poach him over. His hand speed is the most suitable for Almighty Qin. We have to keep this a secret. Once the National League starts, those people will know that their so-called predictions were bullsh*t. Feng Shang knew his brother well. His brother didn't usually talk like this. Today he was really high. After knowing the reason, the members of the Supreme Alliance all had mixed feelings. For the past 3 years, the captain had been asking them to practice hand speed. This was probably the reason. He wanted to find someone to cooperate with him. But in the end they didn't think that far ahead. Until that youngster appeared. No wonder Captain changed so much. Everyone's doubts were finally dispelled. They had been wanting to ask that question for a long time. What about the captain's severe mysophobia? Everything was fine after meeting Little Spade. He wouldn't even touch eye drops, let alone give them to others. If it was in the past, they would never have dared to imagine such a thing. But now, their captain was acting so naturally and elegantly. They really felt like they were in a state of confusion. However, after listening to Manager Feng's explanation today, they all understood. Chapter 364. Originally, this matter should have ended here. After hesitating for a long time, Coco whispered to Qin Mo, "The Cali team has been speaking up for us. Captain, about last time, please don't be angry." Qin Mo didn't answer, just glanced at him. That glance made Coco understand that on this issue, it wouldn't be so easy to mediate. The Cali team was still thinking of inviting the Supreme Alliance out for dinner, saying that they wanted to welcome them back. After all, They had won against Sakura's Stream Team, so they could vent their anger. The Kali team first contacted Coco. After all, they were familiar with each other. But unexpectedly, Coco replied to them, "It's not convenient." The little girl was happy. "Why not? Do you think it's embarrassing to let a girl treat you to dinner?" Coco didn't reply. The little girl sent another WeChat message. "How about this? Why don't you treat us to dinner to thank us for supporting you on your official Weibo?" Did they have to treat them to dinner because they supported them? Coco was a little speechless. Plus, the captain's attitude was very obvious, so it was really hard to reconcile the last time. "Please thank Sister Lioli and the others for me, but we really can't eat together again after all, when we were in Tokyo. Let's wait for some other time, then we can get together again." The little girl was unhappy when she heard this. "Coco, we like you and want to treat you, but you are a group of men. Are you not giving us face?" Coco felt that there was no way to communicate, so he simply closed WeChat. Who knew that this matter wouldn't end? The little girl was very angry. "He didn't give us the honor, saying that after all, when we were in Tokyo. I guess it's because of that young Master Fu." "I think so too. How narrow-minded can he be? He's already making things difficult for us over such a small matter." Before on Weibo, one of his fans told Almighty Chin to stop associating with him. "I think he was right, this person is really disgusting. If he wasn't from the Supreme Alliance, I would have already found someone to deal with him. What a joke. Supreme Alliance is too much. We like them so much but they still act like this." At this moment, Lioli walked over and glanced at them. Her voice was gentle as she said, "This has nothing to do with the Supreme Alliance. What was our relationship with the Supreme Alliance in the past, and what is it now? It's obvious that there are external factors involved." "Captain, don't tell me you don't have a solution? Although the He family's company is doing well, it can't be compared to the third generation of Jiang City." Someone started to come up with an evil plan. Lioli smiled and did not say anything else. However, her darkened eyes indicated that what she was about to do next was not good. "Forget it. There's no need to get the third generation red to help. Even if some people like Spadesy's maneuvers, they won't like him as a person." He doesn't leave any leeway in his actions. If an MMO player can't even handle such comments, then what's the point of playing MMO? Isn't it the same for all professions? If you're being criticized, then you just have to endure it. In fact, when Lioli said this, she was very clear in her heart. Some people's liking is too superficial. Chapter 365. Then shouldn't we do something? That girl is still not convinced. Lioli didn't mind. If you guys are really angry, you can open a few Smuff accounts and go to Spadesy's official account to make him unhappy. Those young people definitely won't accept the way he dealt with Black last time. If you guys say that, they will definitely respond to you. Will that work? Lioli laughed. For some children, they must like others for them to like them. Once they are managed, they will have resentment in their hearts. They won't care about the nature of the matter, and they still feel wronged. This is a chance for you to vent your anger. What about Supreme Alliance? Captain, we don't want to be hated for no reason. Spadesy came and it became like this, really. I don't want to say anything. Lioli put away her bag, and her long hair fluttered. Don't worry if you can't go through Coco, there are other ways. Once the misunderstanding is cleared, everything will be fine. Just remember to find that person. Hearing this, the Kali team members were instantly energized. They applied for 3 or 4 alternate accounts and started browsing under Fujio's official account. First, there was a post like this. It's not good to keep creating hype. I like Spadesy very much, and I hope Big Spade can focus on improving his hand speed instead of always following Almighty Chin. Personal advice, you can ignore it. Good luck. 10 minutes after the post came out, the management deleted it. Once the post was deleted, it was a big deal. These people finally had an excuse. Management, come out. Let me ask you, why did you delete my post? Originally, this matter was not a big deal. But it was this sentence that planted the seeds of hidden dangers in public opinion that would slander Spade Z in the future. At this time, Fujio had just arrived home, and little butler Chen Xiaodong rushed over. "Young master." Because the little butler looked so serious, Fujio raised her eyebrows with one hand holding her school bag. "What's wrong? You and Almighty Qin Yu?" Chen Xiaodong felt that this kind of thing was too hard to say. After all, when he looked at Weibo, that bed photo was very clear. "You guys didn't really do it, did you?" Fujio reached out and smacked him on the head. "Don't just let your imagination run wild. We are going to the competition." With that, she threw herself on the sofa and looked around. "Where's my mom?" Chen Xiaodong covered his forehead and breathed a sigh of relief. "Madam knows that you are coming back today and is rushing back. You don't know how busy Madam has been recently. Many people want to find our family for a joint venture, saying that they think he has a good future." Hearing Chen Xiaodong's words, Fujio paused for a moment before asking with a chuckle, "What about Fu Zhongyi?" "Nothing. Young master. Why did you mention that person all of a sudden?" Chen Xiaodong had a disgusted look on his face. Fujio picked up the teacup and took a sip. "Nothing, just asking." Now that the He clan was developing so well, it was impossible for the other party to not make a move. She did not believe that her scum father still had any feelings for them. Even if Fu Zhongyi didn't make a move, Third would have probably blown pillow talk. Chen Xiaodong didn't mind at all. "Who knows? It's been a few days and they haven't shown themselves." "You didn't show your head?" Fujio raised her eyebrows. This wasn't the style of that three. Chapter 366. Young master, what are you thinking about? Chen Xiaodong tilted his head and asked. Fujio stood up and grabbed her bag. "Nothing, I'm going upstairs to rest." Chen Xiaodong didn't understand. Ever since he came out of the hospital, his young master had been so secretive. He seemed to like staying in his room. Was he going to play games again? This time, Chen Xiaodong was wrong. After Fujio entered her room, she didn't play games. Instead, she opened her laptop. Her slender fingers pressed on it, and the screen turned on. It was the letter Z written in black. Ever since she joined the Supreme Alliance, she hadn't done anything like this. After all, with the Almighty watching her, it wasn't suitable for her to attack any websites. Every hacker had their own unique methods. The reason why the Almighty hadn't figured out that she was Z was because she had changed her methods for Director Zhang's incident. But if she did it a few more times, she wasn't sure if the Almighty would notice anything. After all, back then, she was caught off guard by the Almighty at Fifth Avenue. And that person was very sure that she was a woman. This was the first time she had encountered such a situation where her identity was exposed. And the Almighty was clearer than she thought about her style of doing things as Z. Not hurting the innocent. Not hurting the weak. That was what she had been telling herself all along. In this world, there were too many helpless truths that were covered by wealth and public opinion. Some things couldn't be handled perfectly by the police alone. And some people were suppressed, and they couldn't say anything about their grievances. Fujio raised her eyes and looked at the gradually darkening night sky outside. She would return to Fifth Avenue after solving the problem with the Fu family. This was because she knew better than anyone that even if one liked peace and quiet, there were some things that could only be maintained if one took action. Just like the Fu family now. Fujio looked at the documents that she had hacked. She lifted the corner of her mouth, and there was a hint of coldness in her eyes. She knew that Sam wouldn't be so obedient. Sure enough, he was plotting against the shareholders. He wanted all the shareholders to force her mother to return the shares. Fujio curled her thin lips. Knowing that she couldn't get the villa, she wanted her son to be the general manager, although she didn't care about the title of Young Master Fu. However, that third party seemed to have forgotten who the original owner of this company was. 9. He Honghua's energetic voice came from outside the house. Fujio moved her fingers, quickly exited the page, and closed the notebook. The timing was just right. "Mom, what's wrong?" Fujio turned the chair around, and that handsome face faced He Honghua's. He Honghua's face was flushed. She pinched her Gio. You've lost weight again. You must not be used to the food in Tokyo. Mom will cook something delicious for you later. What was wrong with his eyes? As expected of his biological mother, she could see the problem with just one look. Fujio turned her head away and held He Honghua's hand. She chuckled and said, I'm fine, it's just a slight infection. I've been taking medication for the past 2 days, and I'll be fine by tomorrow or the day after. Then I'll eat something to calm myself down today. It must be because I've been staring at the computer for too long that it caused a reaction, He Honghua said. Chapter 367. A call from the Almighty? Why didn't he call her cell phone? As Fujio thought about this, she touched her pocket and realized that her phone was turned off. When he went downstairs to answer the phone, Chun Xiaodong and He Honghua were basically standing on the left and right. Their expressions of I didn't want to eavesdrop, I'm just passing by were very obvious. Fujio laughed. She put one hand in her pocket and picked up the receiver. Hello, Brother Mo. The Almighty sounded like he was outside. Even through the phone, he could hear the faint sound of music. Did you use the eye drops? Fujio paused. She had indeed forgotten about this. Chin Mo was still holding the cigarette in his hand. Originally, it had been quieter outside the room. But when he heard that there was no response, he frowned. Behind him, a figure walked over with a smile on his face. Who are you calling? You even came out to make the call. In all these years, they had never seen Chin Mo take the initiative to call anyone. His good brothers found it interesting and wanted to find out more. Chin Mo glanced at his friend and pretended he didn't exist. He continued. Who else is beside you? Chun Xiaodong and my mom. Fujio chuckled. They are eavesdropping on my phone call. It's probably from Brother Mo, and they find it strange. Chun Xiaodong and He Honghua both froze. The one who drank water almost choked, while the one who didn't drink water wailed in his heart. Ojio, there are some things you should keep to yourself. Don't say it out loud. As Chin Mo listened, the corners of his mouth lifted. It seemed like it was always like this. The youngster's words were interesting. Pass the phone to Auntie. What are you doing? Fujio raised her eyebrows. Chin Mo replied calmly. What's the matter? Say hello. Fujio thought it was about business, so she turned around and said to He Honghua, Mom, come on. After listening for so long, Brother Mo wants to say hello to you. Talk to her on the phone? He Honghua's expression froze. It wasn't that she hadn't seen young Master Qin from Jiang City before, but that was only at business gatherings. Gatherings like this also had different levels. Not to mention her, even Fu Zhongyi couldn't squeeze into young Master Qin's circle. She could still remember Fu Zhongyi holding a glass of wine and trying to get closer. He Honghua, on the other hand, did not have that kind of idea. Anyway, she knew her own appetite the best. Since they were not in the same circle, there was no need to put down their pride and force their way in. If that was the case, it would be too lowly. However, He Honghua was still shocked by the young man's aura. He Honghua came from the countryside, so she envied cultured people the most. Chin Mo, on the other hand, looked like a celebrity who exuded nobility from head to toe. He Honghua had thought that she would never have any contact with the Qin Corporation in this life. Who would have thought? Phone. Is that Auntie? The voice on the other side gave people a luxurious feeling. This made He Honghua feel like she was dreaming. She coughed heavily and put on the posture of a parent. Yes. Chin Mo probably hadn't made such a call before, so he thought for a moment and said, Auntie, I'm a bit rash with this call today, but I'm still worried about Fujio. He overuses his eyes. It's best if Auntie can supervise him at home and make sure he doesn't use his computer or phone casually. Fujio stood there with her hands in her pockets. She didn't know what the Almighty was talking to her mother about. Chapter 368. What's not a problem? Fujio was still raising her eyebrows. He Honghua hung up the phone, and her expression was especially serious. Madam, I'm here. Qin Xiaodong came over. He Honghua glanced at Fujio first, and then said, confiscate all the electronic products on young master, and don't let him use the computer for the next 2 days, got it? Don't worry, madam. I'm here, and I won't let young master do anything wrong, Qin Xiaodong promised. Fujio. What did the Almighty say to her mother that even her mother wanted to monitor her? Qin Mo could probably imagine the young man's gloomy look on the other end of the phone after hearing the news, and the smile on his lips deepened. Han Feng, who was standing behind Qin Mo, was stunned after seeing his expression. What's going on? He has a woman? Then tonight's game is going to be difficult. Han Feng frowned, but soon he laughed again. The small fights outside were probably not going to be a big deal. Let's wait for his sister to bring her people over. Han Feng whistled and followed him into the card bag. The people sitting inside were all from the military compound, and they were familiar with each other. But 2 of them were thrown into the army by their families when they went to university, and it was not easy for them to come back. They were definitely looking for their brothers to have a good time. But with Qin Mo around, they wouldn't go too far. At most, they would drink in a nightclub. After all, they were all well educated. Everyone was different. Sitting in the card bag, some people couldn't wait and wanted to get close to them. Especially some girls who came out to play. They looked at people with hooks in their eyes. But these 4 people were strange. They didn't ask anyone out, and one of them just raised his glass to the girls with a smile on his face. As for the rest, they just sat there and discussed other matters. I heard you have a new sister. When are you going to bring her out? The one who asked this was one of the people who just came back from the army. His name was Jing Ran, and his calm look was indeed suitable to wear a military uniform. After hearing his words, Jiang Zhua, who was drinking, paused and said lazily, there's nothing to see. Done. Han Feng glanced sideways. Don't be unhappy. I understand you. Your father gave half of his wealth to someone else for no reason. But that family is so poor that they don't have anything they want. I heard that they have an older daughter who is very fat. She's our junior from number 1 middle school. What's her surname again? Look at me, don't bother about those unimportant people. If her mother marries into the Jiang family, won't she be at your mercy? Hurry up and change your attitude. In a while, a beauty will come over and help us drive. How about that? Big brother treats you well, right? He knows that you're unhappy, so he found someone to warm things up. Jiang Zhua frowned, looking frustrated. They aren't as bad as you make them out to be. Yes, we really can't blame them. After all, anyone would cherish the chance to walk out of the slums. That man's words hit the nail on the head. Because of that, Jiang Zhua felt unhappy. Just as he was thinking about it, a voice came from the other side. Brother, if the 4 of you sit here, are you going to let the other guys live? The speaker was Han Feng's sister Han Susu. She was dressed very beautifully, and it was the most eye-catching attire of the time. Chapter 369. She looked at Qin Mo, who was sitting in the innermost area, and a faint smile appeared on her delicate and beautiful face. Han Susu watched from the side, curled her lips, and said in a low voice, "Look at you, it's too obvious." Liuli blushed and tried to suppress her shyness. "Don't say any more." "I won't say any more." Han Susu walked forward and said to Han Feng, "Brother, I've brought them here. If any of you drank, I can send you back." Han Feng smiled and said, "You can send them back as you see fit, but Qin Mo's car is an off-road vehicle, so we have to find someone with good driving skills." "Then let Sister Liuli send them back." Han Susu pushed Liuli's back with her hand. Sister Liuli is the most suitable person to send Brother Qin back. They all play esports and are both captains, so they can communicate in the car. Anyway, it was just a small matter. Brother Qin would definitely agree for her sake. At least, that was what Han Susu thought. She had heard some of the reasons. She even went to the official bar to take a look before coming here. It was enough to show that Spadezi was a narrow-minded person. And she had seen that prodigal son of the Fu family before. Even though he was the one making trouble downstairs every time. And they were sitting in the card bag. But for that kind of person, no one would have a good impression. Unexpectedly, that prodigal son also knew how to play games, and it was said that he was quite good at it. But so what? He had a bad character, so he couldn't enter their circle. Sister Lioli had always been interested in Brother Chin, and they were a good match. But because of some conflicts between teams, Brother Chin was angry with Sister Lioli now. That prodigal son was still manipulating them. Didn't he think about the relationship between them? Was it something he could manipulate? Han Susu didn't know the whole story, and all she knew was what the Kali team told her, so her perception was wrong. Chin Mo leaned over and put out the cigarette in the ashtray. His handsome face was indifferent, and he only said one sentence. What's the point of you doing this? 7 words, no more no less. But it was enough to hear the coldness in it. This time, not only Han Susu but also Lioli's face was embarrassed. However, she was already prepared before she came, so she didn't show it. Han Susu, on the other hand, was a little annoyed. She didn't understand why Big Brother Chin was so ungracious today. Brother Chin, you. She still wanted to say something. Lioli pulled her back and said softly, forget it. You and I both know that young Master Chin values his teammates. At the end of the day, it was all because of that useless young Master Fu. It must be because that young Master Fu's heart was too dark. It was just a small argument, but he thought the worst of others. That's why he ended up like this. I really don't want to say anything more. Boring. Han Susu was so ignorant, and she didn't realize that there was anything wrong with it. Compared to Han Susu, Han Feng, the elder brother, was much calmer. Even after seeing his brother's attitude, he had a feeling that something was wrong today. Sure enough, Chin Mo stood up with one hand in his pocket. Han Feng. Han Feng subconsciously raised his head, only to see that there was no warmth in his friend's eyes. Chapter 370. Wait a minute, you drank the most just now. How can you drive in this state? Han Feng was anxious to get him to stay. How about I find a designated driver for you? Chin Mo stopped and looked at Han Feng. Finally, the coldness in his eyes faded a little. I don't need a designated driver. I'll find someone to pick me up. That's fine. Han Feng was almost sure that there was a reason behind this. He didn't want Yu Lao to get himself into trouble this time. Looking for Secretary Liang? I have his number here. Chin Mo took out his phone and dialed a number. Not him, someone else. I can see if that guy is obedient or not. Han Feng. This tone. Why does it sound hard to describe? Who is it? Chin Mo didn't seem to want to hide it from anyone. He actually turned on the loudspeaker. After a few noises. Brother Mo. What exactly did you say to my mom? She won't even let me read her novels now. How am I supposed to spend the night? Chin Mo was speechless. Brother Mo, what did you say to my mom? She won't even let me read her novels now. It was that useless young Master Fu. The Kelly team's members all lowered their eyes. Lioli's hands clenched even tighter. She finally found a chance to send Almighty Chin home. Gone just like that? Fujio was still sighing. Brother Mo, let's talk about trust in each other. If you look at me like that, I'll feel like I'm in a police station. You've been in a police station before? Chin Mo said as he took a puff of his cigarette. Fujio thought of the scene from her previous life, and shook her head decisively. No, it's just an analogy. I think Brother Mo can understand it better with this analogy. After all, we are all so handsome, so there shouldn't be any problem communicating with handsome guys. Someone couldn't help but laugh. It was Jiangzhua. He was still holding a glass of wine in his hand. He looked at Chin Mo as if he was wondering who this guy was and why his words were so interesting. Is there someone here? Fujio had always been good at listening. Chin Mo replied, yes. Put it on loudspeaker. Fujio understood. Brother Mo, you're playing outside? But my electricity is banned at home. What a difference. Jiangzhua heard this and laughed even harder. Chin Mo glanced at him, and then lowered his eyes to the phone. You have a lot of resentment? My place is indeed very fun. If you come and take a look, you'll find it interesting. In front of so many people, Chin Mo actually chatted with the youngster like this. Using the phone, however, the youngster didn't seem to care that he was on speakerphone. An evil smile came over. Brother Emo, if you want to ask me out, you can just say it. We can go grab some skewers at this hour. We can talk about the meat later. I drank some wine and I need someone to help me. Chin Emo arched a brow. Are you coming? Fujio chuckled. Address, specific address. I don't have a phone on me right now. You can come out when I'm almost there. It's your favorite nightclub. It's very close to the Fu family. Chin Emo heard the youngster say something else before hanging up. The atmosphere in the card booth changed. Everyone was looking at Chin Emo. Han Susu didn't expect Big Brother Chin to be so close to that young Master Fu. On the other hand, Jiang Zhua knew that Chin Emo had done this for a reason. He was trying to boost the reputation of the person on the other end of the phone. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.